All right, guys, we are live inside DC's digital newsroom here. If you're joining me, thanks for coming on. We're going to see if we can gather some more viewers here on our YouTube stream and then start our show going around the country and around town for all the live and breaking news and events that we have going on today. And there's a lot of different stuff, a lot of different topics are really at the helm of today's news. We got stuff on Capitol Hill going on right now. And we have, I'm looking at all my sources here, we have other trending stories that have become bigger topics that also connect to some other topics from today. I have an inside look at a cool event that I didn't get to show you yesterday, but it's something that I attended over the weekend. And yesterday, our YouTube stream, we had a video issue. So I want to bring it on today's show instead. So a little surprise for the end of the show. As usual, we have the White House press briefing as well at around 1:30. And just a lot of different things. President Obama was in Italy earlier this morning with the time change. He had an early sort of speech hit on in the 8 o'clock or so hour. So I made sure I snagged that to bring to you because it's been interesting to track former President Obama's speaking engagements since the presidency. A lot of different things that he's passionate about. We all know he's a pretty good speaker. Interesting to watch him speak. So I grabbed that as well for our show. So let me show you just around town right now what is going on. I'm going to flip over to this screen just to give you a little taste of what we got going on live. Here we go. In the right-hand corner of your screen, the Senate Armed Forces Committee is hearing testimony from NSA Director Admiral Michael Rogers. That's going on live right now, talking about U.S. Cyber Command. Some interesting stuff in there. We can flip around to that to bring you there. I also have another cool event, or actually, let me just show you this. We'll go live to a shot of the White House so you can check out what that looks like. Hey guys, if you're just joining us, welcome to the show.
Attention stations, it's on channel 1. You get the Success Academy Charter School, Harlem, New York. These are protesters outside the school. Source for this is Fox.
We're getting some information out of our Fox box now of something else that's going on. So we're always getting in new sources and whatnot so we can bring you to cool live happenings that we have coverage of, that we have a camera at. And actually, the box just alerted me to this. So check it out right here, bottom right of your screen there. That is a protest. You can see some of those signs. Not censored, a protest for Speaker Paul Ryan, who is speaking at some type of academic school in New York. You can see the NYPD surrounding here. We're just getting this in now. You can hear the chants and the signs. You can see the signs there for anti-Trump care. A lot of chants about Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan is slated to speak there. And this is the footage of the protest. Joining us, you're checking out some live footage that we got coming out of New York City. Speaker Paul Ryan is slated to speak there in Harlem today. I'm reading this now. He is to visit Success Academy #1 charter school that's in Harlem. You can hear some of the chants Paul Ryan, shame on you. Some other stuff about healthcare. I'm not making it all out. If you hear what he says and you want to chat with us, feel free to chat on our YouTube stream chat. You see it on the right-hand corner of your screen. And yeah, feel free to tell us what you think. Just to let you know, my name is Molly. I'm coming at you from Washington, D.C., Fox 5 live here in the digital newsroom. And we're just going to jump around to some cool live events that are happening that we have feeds coming in, whether they be government related here in Washington, a lot of stuff going on in Capitol Hill, or just live breaking stuff that we see across the country, across the world that's happening. This is what we have right now. I see this comment about New York City. Always speaking their feelings, that is true. Look at these signs, very creative. We've seen a lot of creative signs in the past months, or many months actually, since I guess the new administration, all the protests in Washington and the marches that we've seen in all the big cities across the nation, including DC. Lots of creative signs. We're always seeing websites and social media come out with the lists of all the signs of the day. So again, this is outside this charter school in Harlem, where House Speaker Paul Ryan is slated to speak today. I think he's speaking around noon, so that they're preceding his visit there. And it is National Teachers Day, so I believe he's there for that. Happens to be on that occasion, or he's speaking for that occasion, rather. And there it is, Paul Ryan coming to New York City here. Take a look at this protest. If you are checking in, you can hear the chants there. Paul Ryan, you will pay. Trying to kill the ACA, Affordable Care Act. That is their chant today. It seems like they're a little bit of an organized bunch there with their signs and their chants. You can see NYPD surrounding here. And check out these signs. Trying to kill the ACA, Paul Ryan, you will pay. Trying to kill the ACA, Paul Ryan, you will pay. Bring this down a little bit and just let you know, Ivanka Trump actually did speak at this same school in November. And it is, if you're just joining us, Speaker Paul Ryan is slated to speak around noon in coinciding with National Teacher Day. He's there to speak at this Harlem charter school. Now, yesterday, Mayor de Blasio in New York City said he'd like to meet with Speaker Paul Ryan today, after or in advance of his speech here at this school, to talk about the repeal or what is in process of the repeal of the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. So just a little information coming out from New York's mayor. So he's there to visit Success Academy #1 charter school that's in Harlem. And I'm reading your comments here, guys. Thanks for chatting with us on our chat box here, saying that there should be more charter schools, more efficient than public schools. Thanks for your comments. And yeah, we'll see where Paul Ryan goes in as he's ushered in to speak, because it likely won't be in the midst of this protest. All right, guys, I'm finding out some more information. There's about 150 people in this crowd, in this protest, and it's located across from the school that Paul Ryan is going to be speaking at. I'm seeing, thanks for your comments, Wendell, your question. I don't know if we will be getting in the speech live. Right now, I do not have that slated on what is coming in live to us. I believe for sure it will be taped inside the school, but if we do have it live, I'll be sure to bring it to you guys to sort of juxtapose this protest with his ultimate speech. But here, once again, speaking at the Success Charter #1 school in Success Academy, charter school in Harlem. And he's there to make a speech coinciding with National Teacher Day. You can see a lot of these signs here, the protests, mostly about healthcare. Most of these signs seem to be about healthcare. Obviously, the House decision to vote on healthcare. You can see some other comments in some of the signage if you can make it out. But once again, this protest happening in Harlem, right across the street from the charter school that Paul Ryan will be speaking at in just about 20 minutes. We'll see if we can get that feed in. If not, that is a taped event that hopefully we'll be able to clip out and show later on in some of our coverage. If you're listening in, you can hear that chant, healthcare for all, not just for Paul, is what they're saying. And if you can make out anything else or see anything, feel free to comment with us. I want to hear what you guys have to say and chat with you. What do you guys think about this? This was a big development. We followed this all throughout the news. I put it on my show throughout the week. We saw the vote happen. We saw everything pretty much go down live. And now it goes over to the Senate. This could take a matter of many weeks. We're hearing 8 weeks before things really happen. The question is it going to get voted in or not? But obviously a big success in the House for House members, for Republicans. And now we're seeing sort of the backlash of that, the other side, these protests to this decision. So again, Speaker Paul Ryan going to speak at this charter school, and we'll take a look at this for a little bit longer and see what becomes of this protest in advance of his speech. And again, if I do get his speech in, we'll bring that to you as well. you guys are just joining us, we're watching protests outside of this charter school in Harlem. We have about 150 people here protesting Speaker Paul Ryan, who's about to speak in about 20 minutes to this school. Now, we do know that Ivanka Trump has spoken at this same school in November. Let's see, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy has spoken at this school. We know that we don't know exactly where he's going to be ushered in. Probably not in this area, probably in the back. But this whole healthcare thing sparking a ton of debate, ton of talk, and ton of protest all over. And this happens to be here in New York City. In Harlem, you can see the signs mostly related to healthcare. You wonder what the response will be if these politicians sort of gloss over protests like this, or if they sit back and they actually look at it and they take it in. I mean, it's hard to say because this happens so much. But I'm seeing some of your comments here about charter schools and what you guys think about Paul Ryan in general, where you think he'll go, if he'll see these signs. I mean, that's a good question. That's definitely a big talker for stuff like this. Like, do people actually sit back and heed this stuff, or do they go about, what their mission is, their purpose? And definitely a big thing in the next couple of weeks. We'll see as this all comes down and goes over to the Senate in short order. All right, guys, so I'm going to bring two shots into your screen now, so we're changing it up a little bit. I'm going to keep this protest up, but in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see a video that's been making its rounds on social media. Have you guys seen this yet? It has been a big talker over the past couple of days. It happened right here near the DMV in Reston, Virginia, so real close to us, right out in Virginia, just mere miles away at a Trader Joe's, and they're calling it Islamophobia at Trader Joe's. Now, it was originally posted by comedian Jeremy McLellan, who claims his friend was the Muslim woman taking this video, and it highlights an incident between two women at this Trader Joe's involving racism. I'm going to turn up the volume, show you this video, and then talk more about it. Have you guys seen this? Let's check it out.
I wish they didn't let you in the country.
Excuse me?
Huh?
I was born here. I don't know if you...
Oh, you were? Okay. Obama's not in office anymore. We don't have a Muslim in there anymore.
Yeah, I wish he was.
He's gone.
Yeah.
He may be in jail, too, in the future.
You look a little crazy. Maybe you need to get some help.
Oh, I'm fine.
No, you're not. Because you don't just strike up a conversation with people in line talking about stuff like that if you're normal.
I'm very normal.
Yeah, it looks like it. I can tell.
What set you off, Obama?
So there it is, guys. If you saw that video, I don't know if you had seen that before, but that's been making its rounds all over media, social media, the web, and we're still sort of investigating into it. There's still stuff coming out of it. Last night, we heard that from one of our reporters who investigated this a little bit further, that this woman claims it was taken out of context. We don't really even know what that means. No really further description about that. So now we're questioning if this woman is going to get a lawyer that will speak on her behalf, and if there is something else to explain here. But interestingly enough, this connects to something that just happened live moments ago, and that is the Council on American Islamic Relations had a little presser, a little meeting just moments ago about, I'm going to bring this to you in the lower half here of your screen. Check it out. This was live video just moments ago about they're claiming their report shows that more than 50%, there has been a spike with more than 50% in anti-Muslim bias and incidents in most recent days. So check it out.
Things that targeted care itself. And if I added that into the report, shall we say, the numbers would jump very high, but then you would have all these incidents in Washington, D.C., which would make Washington, D.C. look like the most bigoted place in the country. We didn't feel that showing the experience of an institution was our goal with this report. Our goal was to show the experience of a community, so we excluded that data specifically.
Yeah, one of the things, just as an aside, we as an institution very often get threats, hate messages, all kinds of, I personally get a number of hate calls, all these. We don't really record those kinds of things unless it goes into the area of violence. For instance, we recently received an envelope that had a foreign substance in it. So obviously that crosses the line, and we would record that for us. We had to evacuate the office at one point when another white powder came to our office. Maybe some of you remember that a few years back. So, as he said, if we added all of those hate incidents targeting our organization, the numbers would be really skewed. So that's why we exclude them at this point.
Yeah. So you mentioned the FBI.
So again, these folks here just moments ago were highlighting the types of anti-Muslim incidents that goes on. And to answer your question, guys, if you were watching just now, I played that Trader Joe's video that's been making the rounds. We don't know, actually. There's still a lot of questions to be answered. It is true, the power of social media is huge. You whip out a phone, you whip out an iPad, you have something to record somebody, audio, video. It's so powerful now. The video it looks real, right, to the human eye. We don't know some of the behind the scenes stuff. We don't know how the woman's sort of plea last night that it was taken out of context works really at all with this incident, because those words were still exchanged. So it's still sort of fuzzy, I think, and we wonder now if this woman will have a lawyer to explain. But still, a lot of investigation to be done. But it's true, who knows? She seemed to look down at the camera at one moment and see that she was being recorded, and then she continued going on, saying, we don't have a Muslim in office anymore, referring to President Obama, that he may be in jail down in the future and whatnot. So those comments, and then coupled up, I thought this was interesting, with this council's report today released that there's been this spike in anti-Muslim incidents. It's pretty interesting. Going to bring you back and keep you here. Check it out. I'm going to just talk over it here. You're still seeing this protest. Let's bring up the sound there. So still with this protest here in New York City, they're in Harlem, right across the street from the charter school that Paul Ryan will be speaking at. And you can see even more of a wide shot here. More signs, wider view, some signs about Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education. Trying to read some of the signs. I don't know if you guys can make anything out or anything strikes you, but do let me know what you think. Don't forget while you're here, by the way, to click subscribe. When you see that button on your YouTube, click subscribe so that you can see whenever I'm up live doing this show for you on the weekdays, to bring you just live events that are happening around town. We want to see what's happening during your lunch break. Maybe you want to just tune in and check it out in the morning. You have a break and you want to see what we have, where we have cameras. This protest, we'll see how long this goes on. Speaker Ryan is slated to speak around noon, so we don't know exactly where he'll be coming in and how that'll all work. But you can see even more signs here.
Right across the street from the success founded by Milan Hospital, 9,000 students, 30 But these protesters are not upset about that. They're upset about having to stay in the town by the public.
Hey guys, thanks for commenting on our live stream here. I'm Molly here in the digital studio. Thanks for checking in and finding and just engaging with us and letting us know. Wendell, thanks for your comment here. The interesting sign that you saw, hit lifetime cap, then cancer came back. Obviously some witty signs. There always are in this protest type of environment. It seems to be even more than I saw at the beginning. A lot of signs here. They're across the street from Success Academy 1 Charter School in Harlem. And that's where Speaker Paul Ryan is about to speak. We were hearing that he was speaking here on Tuesday, and he's even the CEO, the founder of the school. She's been called out for partnering with Speaker Ryan on this speaking engagement, this event, because a lot of people, these different parties and organizations, are criticizing him for the recent passage of the GOP healthcare bill, so in the House. So we're seeing this protest. We're going to see what happens next. If we do have a little bit of taped footage of Speaker Ryan's speech, we'll bring that to you as well. I'm not quite sure if we'll get it live, but we are bringing you here on Fox 5 Live all the live stuff that we get in throughout your day, so you can check in and just see what's going on in the middle of the day from one topic to the next. It's going to be very varied, and we thank you guys for joining us. Feel free to chat along with us. Click subscribe on our YouTube channel, and we're also on all the other social media too. So you can use Fox 5 DC as your search term on Facebook, Twitter, of course, Instagram, and Snapchat. We're going to see what happens here with this protest. Looks like it is quite large. Perhaps there's a car rolling up. We don't really know what's happening. Let's take a listen and a look for a second.
In a situation like this, it's a
I know Speaker Ryan is supposed to arrive here at 12 noon. We haven't seen him yet, so we don't think he is inside.
You can hear some reporters even doing live hits. They're there to send the report back to their station or whatever they're reporting for or on. And I don't know if we see much movement or any change here. It looks like the crowd continues to line up here. Like there is some police force. We were seeing some NYPD as well, but right up to the gate there, right across from the school that Speaker Ryan is about to speak at. I don't know what quite is to happen here, but I'm curious to see if he comes through this crowd or sees it, or just sort of how the crowd reacts to that, or if he'll go around a different entrance. I don't quite know what will happen. And like I said, all we know is that he is slated to visit this charter school, and now it's sparking this protest here in New York City. We're seeing lots of signs, lots of creative signs, invoking President Trump and the government to make changes to their policies, and of course, in light of recent events, protesting healthcare and other government decisions. Thanks for checking in with us, guys. We're going to keep it on this protest for just a little bit longer, and then I have some other stuff to show you that's been happening around the DMV, and cool stuff that happened this morning as well, just moments ago, related to Washington, D.C. and all the stuff we're going through here, including a couple interesting things that I did over the weekend, so stay with us.
Waiting for Speaker Paul Ryan, and he has not arrived here at the Success Academy. Now, earlier this morning, I went inside of the school and asked school officials, would we be hearing from Speaker Ryan? Would we see any video of him arriving? Also, would we hear from the founder of the Success Academy, Islamophobia? The answer to all of that was no. But we will keep you posted on what we see and hear from any of these officials and Speaker Paul Ryan arrives. And we'll keep you posted. For now, we're live.
So guys, an interesting little factoid here. Success Academy is a link in a group of charter schools. You were mentioning which one is this? Really good question. This is Success Academy 1 on 118th Street in Harlem. West 118th Street, rather, excuse me. So on the west side in Harlem. And interestingly, this network of charter schools is run by Eva Moskowitz. And this is cool. An interesting little fact that I'm reading. She was once under consideration to serve as President Trump's education secretary, according to some sources. So that's an interesting connect there. I know she's being called out as the CEO for allowing this to happen and having Speaker Ryan as a speaker here. Obviously some backlash, obviously a big protest. We're reading about 150 people there outside across from Success Academy number 1 on West 118th Street in Harlem. So that is the location of what we're looking at right now. The crowd seems to be staying pretty stable. We don't have much more of a wide shot than this, but like I said, we're reading about 150 people gathering here to protest. We'll see what happens next, and if we get any sneak peek or snippet of the speaker coming into the school or any other protest that we get as he interacts with the protesters, if that happens. Thanks for staying with us, guys, and continue on to watch and chat along with us. Let us know what you think. And double click on that button, subscribe, so that you can subscribe to see our channel when we bring you this live stuff day to day, weekdays, coming at you from Washington, D.C. All right, guys, stay with us. All right, guys, I'm going to bring you over now to another event concurrently. Let's jump it over. So you see two screens. We're going to keep this protest up. And then the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, we're going to switch it up here. Just a few moments ago, we had some public officials from the DMV gather to talk about substance abuse and the opioid epidemic. Now, this is the first summit of its kind. This happened right here near us in Washington, D.C., next door in Maryland. And we have Mayor Muriel from D.C. and the governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, was there to speak. This happened less than an hour ago to talk about combating this epidemic. We know we've talked about this in recent days. President Trump has held numerous roundtables about this crisis and the victims of opioid abuse and these troubles in our community. So let's take a listen now to the mayor and to the governor and what they had to say, because we've heard the numbers are staggering. Nearly 2,600 deaths just in the DMV in 2015 alone, as related to opioids and addictions of substance abuse. So we see a lot of numbers. I know nationwide the number is something like 52,000 or something was the number in 2015. And then just to bring it to a more local level, to hear these leaders speak about it is pretty potent. So we're going to listen in to see what she said. I'm going to keep this protest up in the corner of your screen.
Disorder and other mental problems. So this tells me that opioid addiction needs to be treated, and we are approaching it in every aspect of what we do as a health issue. This will not only change the way we treat it, but we know that it will help us identify root causes and help our residents, family members, employers approach the issue in the same way. Shifting the way we frame the conversation, of course, will help us destigmatize the issue for those who seek treatment and help them better re-engage in a productive life. This is the approach that we're taking in the district. We know that opioid use and death can happen to anyone, as you heard the governor say. We know that teenagers, senior citizens, working professionals can become addicted, and increasingly are becoming addicted. It crosses all socio and economic lines, and it crosses racial barriers. That's why we're working together to curb the epidemic. Let me talk about our interagency collaboration in DC. I became mayor, like the governor, just over 2 years ago, and then we convened a multidisciplinary group comprised of representatives from all of our agencies, from the Department of Health and mental health in the district, as well as our emergency responders. Our goal was to develop a coordinated response to challenges that our community faces related to opioid addiction. Since its launch, this task force has been hard at work around developing new strategies that we're going to discuss today, all with the goal of decreasing illness and death related to opioid use. We believe that through our improved collaboration and through increased communication and sharing of data, that we will develop one of the most efficient strategies to combat opioid addiction and related deaths. One example is our screening, brief intervention, and referral treatment. We call it SBIRT, and it's a pilot initiative that took place between May and August of 2015. And during this pilot, the district's Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services partnered with the Department of Behavioral Health to offer immediate access and treatment to individuals who experienced opioid overdose during that time period. This allowed us to get a snapshot of what our epidemic looks like and the demographics associated with the epidemic. So you will see that in that time period, that May to August, that FEMS responded to 104 overdoses during the pilot. Of these, 7 patients had experienced an overdose for the second time. And this is what we learned about them. Approximately 12% of
All right, guys, bringing you back to the sound of the protest here in New York City. Nothing seems to be changing. Just wanted to leave these two dual events on your screen so you can see multiple things that are happening as we take this live show throughout the day, throughout the midday here on your lunch hour or wherever you might be checking in with us. This was our live camera on the bottom right of your screen. So we had a reporter and a photog there just less than an hour ago getting this substance abuse summit, the first of its kind. So I wanted to kind of bring you there and show you that the DMV public officials were speaking out about this crisis. And then, of course, we've been listening to this earlier, this protest noise. seems to still be going on. I have another thing going on concurrently right now, which I'm going to bring you guys down in the right-hand corner of your screen. Check it out. We have Senator Marco Rubio. Remember him? If you guys miss him, he is speaking at the Anti-Defamation League, and we haven't heard from him in a little bit. So this is live. So let's check in with Marco Rubio and see what he has to say.
That meant all people. And the question before us today on multiple policy before our nation and before our society is whether that is still true, and whether in fact that remains the unifying theme and cause of America. In recent months, we have seen that challenged. We've seen it challenged here at home. The Jewish student in Georgia who received a note from another student that contained a swastika and the phrase, "Hitler did the world a favor." At the City College of New York, an area where Jews meet for prayer, it was defaced with graffiti that read, "Jews are pests. Hitler was right to kill them all." Sadly, in my home state of Florida, swastikas were drawn on the sidewalks of 3 synagogues on the same day. And on a personal note, and we've shared this with Jonathan and others, my wife, because she is involved in a number of causes, and of course being my wife, received a very disturbing voicemail from someone we don't know. And the most disturbing part of this voicemail, which we played for them, it was hate-filled and so forth, was the calmness in which that hateful message was delivered. I'm not saying it would have been better, I'm just saying it would have probably been less chilling if the person who left that voicemail was angry and screaming and using profanity. This person was making this argument as if it was a legitimate and credible political thought. And without giving it credence by going into its contents, suffice it to say it was not just eye-opening, but chilling to believe that there are people in our country who not just hold these views, but are prepared to enunciate them without hiding their first name, their last name, where they live, or where they are. Obviously, we're all familiar with the JCC threats. In response to those threats, I'm proud that in March, all 100 senators urged the Attorney General, the Homeland Security Secretary, the FBI Director, to make sure that we're protecting these centers as a priority and to find and ultimately to prosecute those responsible. The fact, by the way, that every single member of the Senate joined in that effort, I think is proof that this issue need not be, should not be, and has historically not been a partisan one. And in continuation to that, I believe that as we enter this budget process and make decisions in Congress, that it's crucial that our Department of Justice and Homeland Security have the resources to help Jewish community centers improve their physical security and to deter threats, and have the ability to work with local law enforcement to investigate and to prosecute these anonymous cowards who are spreading fear and anxiety, often impacting the lives of young children who rely on these centers for after-school activities, not to mention faith activities, and in cases of schools, disrupting their academic day. I was also proud to be a part of a hate crime condemnation resolution, because anti-Semitism at the end of the day is part of a larger disturbing trend which is emerging in our society as it's become more politically polarized in recent years. Hate-based violence and threats are on the rise, with virtually every type of person threatened simply because of who they are. And that includes Arabs and Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs. Last month, I'm proud to have worked with Senator Kamala Harris of California on a bipartisan resolution condemning hate crimes and discrimination and other forms of prejudice against minorities in the United States. And again, I'm proud that the Senate passed that resolution unanimously. But I would say that as we continue to combat these issues here at home, we should not forget that ours is an important voice in the world, and that internationally, we continue to combat hatred and bigotry and continue our efforts to support persecuted people as persecution continues unabated throughout the world.
You guys are watching Senator Marco Rubio speak live down at the Anti-Defamation League. And if you remember, we brought you FBI Director James Comey also speaking at the same league earlier this week. I believe that happened yesterday. I want to thank you guys for your comments. Thanks for chatting with us. Wendell, you're saying, take a look at the drug epidemic since Vietnam. We get intervals of when these epidemics occur. I feel like if we never had Vietnam, we wouldn't have had such drug epidemics. Interesting observation there, interesting comment. Definitely some deep sort of content there to think about with the drug epidemic. I can bring you back to that speech as well. We had our mayor, DC Mayor Muriel, who I saw on Saturday at the DC Funk Parade. She was throwing out beads, and I caught one of them, which was really fun. So she's always involved in the community events and stuff, very much a public official of the people. And then also Governor Terry McAuliffe of Virginia, speaking out about the drug epidemic and the numbers, the staggering numbers by which people have died due to substance abuse and opioids in our DMV area. So that was earlier, that video. Right now you're watching live Senator Marco Rubio, right-hand corner of your screen. Up in the left corner, still this protest in Harlem, in New York City, protesting Speaker Paul Ryan, who is, I think, speaking now, possibly inside that school. He was slated to speak around 2 or perhaps or 12, perhaps arrive around 12. We'll have to look into if we get any more footage of that. But for now, we'll leave you right here with these 2 concurrent events.
Must work with other nations to combat this evil global phenomenon. We must expose anti-Semitism wherever we see it. So I introduced the Combating European Anti-Semitism Act of 2017, which would enhance reporting requirements on anti-Semitic incidents in Europe and the annual International Religious Freedom Report that's authored by the State Department. This bipartisan legislation was introduced with Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, and it will ensure that the State Department can better assess and understand the challenges that so that we can combat European anti-Semitism in all of its forms. We've also tackled anti-Semitism as a global problem at international forums like the United Nations. We've seen a troubling trend at the UN of consistently singling out Israel and of attacking the Jewish state's legitimacy, and they are outrageous. The United States cannot stand by and allow the sole democracy in the Middle East and one of our strongest allies on the planet to be targeted, discriminated against, or held to a different standard than any other UN member state. Recently, UNESCO member states once again
Hi guys, we're getting a little more of a wide view of this protest in New York City. You can see right below my face here, the protest lining the streets in Harlem. This is at West 118th Street in Harlem, right across the street from the Success Academy 1 charter school that's up there in Harlem in Upper Manhattan. And Speaker Paul Ryan is slated to speak there. Now I have 2 events going on right now. You can also see bottom right-hand corner of your screen, Senator Marco Rubio is speaking out against anti-Semitism at the Anti-Defamation League. So that's going on right now. Wanted to bring you some of his words, but let's pull up the sound on this protest and see what's going on there. Thanks, guys, for watching, and check in with us. Let us know what you think about this protest. Looks like it's pretty under control. Large crowd here. We're estimating around 150 people are outside across the street from this school that Paul Ryan is slated to speak at. Just moments away. We were told around 12 to 2 o'clock or so he is speaking there. Police seem to be calm and under control. Doesn't seem to be too violent, but that's a good amount of people, I think, kind of crunched into that area right outside these what looks like apartment buildings and whatnot in Harlem. So this is at the charter school, the Success Academy 1. This is a network of charter schools across Manhattan, and the leader of that, the CEO, is Eva Moskowitz, who was reportedly originally possibly going to be tapped as Secretary of Education under President Trump. So there is sort of a link there. That's what we're reading. We know that Speaker Paul Ryan was asked to speak there, and she is taking a little bit of heat from other organizations and parties that do not agree with the speaker speaking at this charter school. You can see if they close in a little more on these signs, you can see sort of what they revolve around, and mostly their healthcare and other government goings-on that people are protesting vis-a-vis signs here, and all in response to this week in politics and these past couple weeks in politics, what we've seen go down, of course, in the House, and other political decisions made by President Trump and his administration. So let's take a listen here a little more. So you can hear, guys, some of the organized chants going on, some of the organized protest words from these people here. Don't have a lot of movement on that front. We're going to keep it on this so we can watch it. Let's switch over our sound now to Senator Rubio, who's speaking about anti-Semitism, anti-defamation at the Anti-Defamation League. Now, we heard from Director of the FBI, James Comey, also speaking at this same Anti-Defamation League. So it's been a hot topic of a lot of directors and senators who are coming together to fight some of these the anti-Semitic and anti-various race sort of remarks that we've heard in the public sphere and in the media as well. And so we'll check in what he has to say.
What they were doing was not compatible with who we were created to be. That cause remains. The challenges are different. The progress has been made, but much remains to be done. It is the job of this generation to do what each generation before it did, and that is to continue to pursue the American idea that all men and women are created equal, because we are all endowed by our Creator with a right to life and to liberty and to pursue happiness, and to ensure that the world and the country and the life we leave our children and grandchildren is one that is even closer to full fulfillment of those ideas than the one that we inherited. And this cause is a critical component of it. For we cannot move forward if we take a single step back. And to allow and to accept hate speech in any form from anyone as an acceptable political viewpoint in this or any century would be a step back, not a step forward. And it would run counter to our ideals. And so, I thank you for your advocacy and for this invitation. And I look forward to continuing to work to highlight this issue in the floor of the Senate, in our homes, in our communities, in society at large. I thank you for your activism. You are the leaders on this issue, and it is our job to take your voice to the forums where we work. So I thank you so very much for this invitation and for this opportunity. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, looks like Senator Rubio is finishing up on the podium there. Let's listen in to see who is next. If we still have this feed, we'll keep it here if it stays interesting.
I think that was fantastic.
All right, guys, looks like that was a no-go. We got the protest back. Senator Rubio is done on the floor of the Anti-Defamation League, speaking there. I want to bring you Governor Terry McAuliffe's remarks this morning about substance abuse. It's a huge topic. It is a huge talker, and it is a big deal in America and in the DMV. We've seen the DEA release that there were around 52,000 deaths in 2015 in the nation related to this substance abuse and opioid addiction epidemic. Now, the governor here had a few words concerning Virginia, and I know that concerns a lot of you guys. If you guys are nearby, if you guys are interested in this sort of thing and what people are going through in your area, perhaps you're watching from somewhere else, but if you are nearby and this affects you, even if it doesn't and you are not nearby, Virginia's sort of response to this was quite interesting. Let's go over to the words of Governor Terry McAuliffe. I'll put it in the lower right-hand corner of your screen.
Mayor Bowser, honored to be with you again. Governor Hogan, great to be in Maryland. It's great to come across the river. I don't know if you knew this, but every single Maryland crab was born in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Governor Hogan rightfully said when he found out I'd said it, and I was probably the only time I was politically fact-checked correct, he said, when they come to their senses, they actually move to Maryland. So it's good. It's great to be over here and see how my Virginia crabs are doing. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Care First. I want to thank the Kaiser Foundation, who has been so helpful to us in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I want to thank all of you for being here. This obviously is a key issue for all of you. I want to thank our Virginia officials who are here with us today. I think Dr. Melton, he and I were in Abington. You're here. You don't have use of the helicopter. I want to thank you for the 8-hour drive to make it up here today, sir, and my Secretary of Public Safety. But this is a big issue, obviously. You've heard the governor and the mayor talk about it. This is a regional problem. I can tell you as chairman of the national governors, it's a problem. There's not 55 of us, the 50 states and 5 territories, a governor who will not have the same conversation that we're having. There are no state lines. There are no boundaries at all when it comes to this very difficult problem that we're facing. Since 1999, when you think of this statistic, since 1999, we have had 3 times the number of deaths from drug overdose than were killed in the Vietnam War. It's an astounding figure. In the Commonwealth of Virginia last year, I lost 1,100 Virginians. We're on track this year, if the numbers stay the way they are, to be at 1,400. This is a very, very difficult, vexing problem. And when you think of opiates and you think of heroin, as you know, they have the identical molecular structure. They come from the same plant, and yet how we deal with them in our states is so different. In Virginia, you can cut the state right in half. I was in Virginia Beach yesterday afternoon, where we do have a heroin fentanyl problem. We then, 8-hour drive away, we were in Abington last night for a town hall meeting. There are no heroin problems or fentanyl problems in Southwest Virginia. You can cut the state right in half. It is all prescription drugs. Totally different, 2 separate problems, same state. And it's how we address that is what's needed. And we've leaned in hard in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We've had a very successful legislative session to do what we have to do. In 2014, I, like the governor, I put a governor's task force together, came up with 50 recommendations. Most of those recommendations have now become law on how we deal with it. When you deal with the prescription drug crisis, you got to deal with the root problem. There are too many doctors prescribing too many pills. Plain and simple. In Southwest Virginia, folks are going in, they're getting a combination of drugs that are lethal. That should not be allowed. And I have told all of our medical personnel, if we find doctors who are doing it, I want their license revoked. They are killing people in our state, and we will not tolerate it. So we're actually getting at the root of the cause. We now have a law in Virginia. Any doctor who prescribes an opiate is limited to 7 days. And even before you can give that prescription, you have to have a patient assessment done and a risk assessment done for any doctor in Virginia today. And if it goes beyond 3 months, every 3 months we need a risk assessment and a drug assessment to see if there's any addiction. We have our PMP program up and running, required by 2020, the entire state will be in it. Today we have 70 million prescriptions right now. We have 1 million prescriptions a month coming into our PMP. Now, we can have the data, but the doctors now have to look at this data to find out, was this patient at another doctor last week getting the same type of drug? And we're very serious. And if we find out that a doctor's doing it, the first step is you will get a letter from our Department of Health that we are coming in to investigate you. And we're going to have a hearing. That should have a chilling effect on doctors and the prescribing that is done. It is absolutely critical that we stop the over-prescribing. We stop the pill mills that are going on today. We have really drastically reduced by 99% any prescription of Subutex. As you know, Subutex is very, very addictive. So we're making it very hard to get, make it easier for Suboxone. Buprenorphine, we're issuing today, but it has to all be medically assisted. Nobody can get these drugs anymore in Virginia unless we are all working together, because it's absolutely critical. We need more drug courts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We are putting too many people in prison, and we're not doing anybody any good by putting people in prison. I spend $24,833 per prisoner per year. And everybody who gets out of prison who has gone in because they've had an addiction problem are getting out, and they still have that addiction problem. As much as we're trying to stop the drugs from getting in, it's happening. But if we put someone in a drug court with a judge and then you have the treatment folks, it's a rigorous program. It takes 1 year, 90% success compared to having someone is incarcerated. We've got to stop the incarceration. We need more drug courts in the Commonwealth of Virginia to do what we need to do. I'm very proud with Medicaid. We were one of only 3 states that just got a waiver. Now, if you are on our Medicaid program in the Commonwealth of Virginia and you have a substance abuse problem, those costs will now be reimbursed. We're one of 3 states who've been able to do it. That is great news. The sad news is I have for 3.5 years tried to expand Medicaid in the Commonwealth and been unsuccessful with my legislature. And as of today, I have 400,000 people and I've lost $10.5 billion. But I will continue to do what I need to do to make progress. But this is all very important for us. So we've got to find out what pills are out there, who's actually getting them, and then if we have someone with addiction, to get them into treatment, to get them into counseling, bringing that all together, and that's how we're going to deal with it. I want to thank the law enforcement personnel. This is a vexing problem for them as well. We've got to stop fentanyl from coming in from China. We've got to stop these drugs from coming in. We've got to arrest people. We've got to hit the root of the problem.
All right, guys, thanks for checking in with us. I'm going to respond to a couple comments here. Thanks for watching from Texas. Nice to have you down there. I know this isn't always local information for everybody. It might not be of interest, but this is actually not an anti-drug protest. It's a substance abuse summit, the first of its kind. We're hearing from public officials in the DMV area about these opioid-related deaths, which are unfortunately very rampant in this area. So just a little bit of facts from the governor of Virginia this morning. We want to bring your attention to this protest again. I'm going to jump it over full screen here. This is the Paul Ryan protest still going on in New York City, in Harlem, Upper Manhattan, guys. And also, Justin, did you guys hear about this? The breaking news. I'm going to bring you a picture. Check it out. And here it is. Aaron Hernandez, his appeal was never heard. And obviously, because we know we've been reporting on this, that he committed suicide in his cell. Really big story surrounding that. It's been a talker for weeks now. His conviction in the 2013 murder has the possibility now to be erased because he died before that appeal was heard. A judge just confirmed that today, and that is the news. So it's this judge said that she was compelled to follow that legal doctrine that calls for vacating convictions when a defendant dies before they can make that appeal. So interesting stuff coming out of the Aaron Hernandez case. That's a big one. I know we've all been following it. There's a lot of details surrounding his suicide notes, what he left behind, his fiance and daughter, just reactions from the community, from the New England Patriots, perhaps. A lot of stuff to kind of still look into, a lot of questions still to be answered. And his attorney, Jose Baez, was saying, we will leave no stones unturned. They're going to continue to investigate his death. And of course, this follow-up with if in fact his murder can be overturned, that conviction can be overturned because he never was able to seek that appeal. All right, going to bring you back now to that live shot. Let's pull up the sound here a little bit. You guys, I have to show you this video too. I don't know if you guys have seen this, possibly not if you're not local to DC, but check it out. Just a little bit ago, DC first responders rescued 8 little tiny ducklings from a storm drain. You got to watch this video. Let me play it. Here we go. Oh my gosh, I love that video so much. I love it so much. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just a little clip of a little thing that the DC Fire and EMS were working on this morning, and we got that video in. Totally reminds me of Boston, Make Way for Ducklings, and that whole statue, the succession of ducklings in Boston Commons in Boston. But anyway, that was a cute little video from this morning that we had that I want to bring back to you. So for now, I'm Molly Nevola, guys. I'm in the DC newsroom. You can see the digital studio kind of behind me. Not a ton going on right now in the newsroom, but we are in the middle of the day. So if I caught you at your lunch break or you're just hanging out, thanks for watching. And don't forget to click that subscribe button. You see it right there on your YouTube screen. Click it so that you can see when we pop up, whenever we're going to come on for live news and events. This is midday. During the weekday, you can catch me here live with you guys, bringing you all the cool trending news and events that we got coming in. Now, we still have that protest in New York City. I really wanted to see what would become of that and if Speaker Ryan would come up to it or what's happening surrounding that. But nothing new really there. I'm going to bring you over now and show you a shot of the White House. That is a live shot of the White House here in Washington. A gorgeous spring day. You can see the wind sort of blowing the flag there around. And just a beautiful day over here in the nation's capital. If we jump it over across the pond, guess what? President Obama was there this morning in Milan, Italy, over in northern Italy, speaking at the Global Fund on Food Innovation, this summit, International Food Innovation Summit in Milan, and talking about a variety of things, I think including climate change and whatnot. But we've seen him a little bit. We've seen his casual sort of demeanor in his speaking engagements post being president. And it's been really fun, I think, to see him in this casual sort of vibe and see what he has to speak about and what's important to him. So let us know what you think. I'm going to show you this video. Happened just a few hours ago, earlier this morning in Milan, Italy. We're going to keep an eye on some other stuff. Looks like the protest footage is actually done, so I don't have anything coming out of there. But let's play Obama in Italy this morning. Check it out.
Can form a more perfect union. Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women. We need your enthusiasm, we need your energy, we need your imagination. I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear. I've never been more hopeful about our future. And I ask you to sustain that hope so long as we have the courage to keep reaching, to keep working, to keep fighting. I believe we can seize this future together. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you.
So a cool little introduction for former President Barack Obama over in Milan, Italy. We're going to hear him speak next at this summit. I think it's pretty interesting to see him post his presidency in these speaking engagements. And let's take a listen.
Stand up. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Was that good?
Thank you so much. Grazie. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please have a seat. Thank you. Good afternoon. I forgot my tie. Buon pomeriggio. Buon pomeriggio. Is that how you say it? I want to say thank you to all of you, and in particular, I want to thank your mayor, Mayor Sala, for hosting us here today. I want to thank Marco and his team at Seeds and Chips. And the Global Innovation Summit. I also want to give some credit to your former Prime Minister, Matteo Renzi, and your former Mayor, Letizia Moratti, for their efforts in making the 2015 Milan Expo possible. And I want to acknowledge Ambassador Doug Hickey, who did great work for us at the United States Pavilion at the Expo. I want to thank Rula for the kind introduction and Morgan for the outstanding leadership that she is already showing. Now, let me first of all say that the last Obama that was here was Michelle Obama. And I know she is the bigger star, but she sends her greetings. I am very happy to be back in Italy. Years ago, before anybody knew who we were, Michelle and I took a trip through Tuscany, and it was one of the most romantic vacations we ever had. During our first term in the White House, we brought our girls to see the glories of Rome. 2 years ago, Michelle came here to Milan, and I promise you that we're going to be coming to Italy a lot in the years to come.
Thank you guys so much for watching, for chatting with me on YouTube. I also find it fascinating that former president also is so casual, never wears a tie, opens up his shirt in all these speaking engagements. And you can hear him here talking about his escapades in Italy with Michelle Obama and his girls, and insinuating that he'll be visiting often in the years to come now that he is retired and no longer president. I'm sure he'll be finding other important work and organizational work and speeches to make. But thanks so much for your comments, guys, and for continuing to be engaged and subscribing, and for watching today and enjoying the content. We're trying to mix it up a little bit, keep it really interesting, and bring you all over. So let's hear what Obama had to say earlier in Milan.
Discrimination, but through faith and hard work and love of family, went on to succeed in every walk of life, and they made America better and stronger for it. And I think I can speak on behalf of all Americans when we say thanks to Italy for the incredible hospitality that you've shown our service members and their families in Italy over the decades. In a few moments, I'm going to be joined by Sam Cass, my great friend, who I've known for a long time. And he's become practically family to us. When I was in the Senate and Michelle was working as well as raising two small girls, Sam Cass came in and started cooking with us, teaching us how to eat healthier and making Michelle more relaxed, which made my life better. We ended up taking him with us to the White House, and he ended up helping to shape America's nutrition policy so that millions of young children could eat healthier meals. He changed America. He is actually the expert here today, so I expect that we're going to have a good conversation. But I do want to make a few points before we begin about the intersection of climate change and the global food system. During the course of my presidency, I made climate change a top priority because I believe that for all the challenges that we face, this is the one that will define the contours of this century more dramatically perhaps than any other. No nation, whether it's large or small, rich or poor, will be immune from the impacts of climate change. We're already experiencing it in America, where some cities are seeing floods on sunny days, where wildfire seasons are longer and more dangerous, where in our Arctic state, Alaska, we're seeing rapidly eroding shorelines and glaciers that are receding at a pace that is unseen in modern times. Now, over my 8 years in office, we dramatically increased our generation of clean energy. We acted dramatically to curtail our use of dirty energy. And we invested in energy efficiency across the board. In Paris, working with people like Matteo, we helped to lead the world to the first significant global agreement for a low-carbon future. But here's the thing. Even if every country somehow puts the brakes on the emissions that exist today, climate change would still have an impact on our world for years to come. Our changing climate is already making it more difficult to produce food. We've already seen shrinking yields and spiking food prices that, in some cases, are leading to political instability. And when most of the world's poor work in agriculture, the stark imbalances that we've worked so hard to close between developed and developing countries will be even tougher to close. The costs will be borne by people in poor nations that are least equipped to handle it. In fact, some of the refugee flows into Europe originate not only from conflict, but also from places where there are food shortages that will get far worse as climate change continues. So if we don't take the action necessary to slow and ultimately stop these trends, the migration that has put such a burden on Europe already will just continue to get worse. Now, the good news is that there are steps we can take that will make a difference.
Thank you so much for joining us here, guys, on our today, Tuesday, May 9th edition of Fox 5 Live here in Washington, D.C. You're watching former President Obama. He spoke earlier this morning, just a few hours ago, mere hours ago, in Milan, Italy. He's in northern Italy. You heard him trying to say a few Italian terms at the beginning of his speech, and he's speaking on the food at a international food innovation summit. So he's speaking on the food crisis, on climate change, and other global affairs related to this. You can see his casual look here from this video. I want to thank you guys for for tuning in and for your comments, and thank you for the kind words about this channel. Please do remember to click subscribe so you can continue to follow us as we bring you just a mix of events of what's happening, stuff that you may not see on your own that you need to find. You can get it all right here. We're going to just bring in all these sources every day to bring you live news and just fun kind of trending events, sometimes political, sometimes global, sometimes just funny and quirky, news events. So continue with us, and we'll keep it right here on this Obama video from just a mere few hours ago in Italy. The time change kind of threw us off for that, so it was earlier, so we had to pre-tape this. Stay with us, guys, and check back in with us, chat with us on our stream, and follow us on YouTube.
Smart agriculture, better seeds, better storage, crops that grow with less water, crops that grow in harsher climates, mobile technologies that put more agricultural data, including satellite imagery and weather forecasts and market prices, into the hands of farmers so that they know when to plant and where to plant, what to plant, and how it will sell. All these things can help to make sure that food security exists in poor countries, but it can also help us assure that in producing the food that we need to feed the billions of people on this planet, that we're not destroying the planet in the process. Now, part of this is also going to be wasting less food, especially in the United States, where we can waste up to 40%, especially when nearly 800 million men, women, and children worldwide face the injustice of chronic hunger and malnutrition. We have to create a food culture that encourages a demand for healthier, more sustainable food. Sam was a leader in this, working with my wife, Michelle, in their Let's Move program. And in fact, by working with schools, businesses, and local leaders across America, Let's Move actually helped bring down America's obesity rates for our youngest kids for the first time in 30 years. In fact, making sure people have healthy food to eat alleviates a lot of the medical costs that we're seeing increasing in the advanced world. And if we are able to reduce our healthcare costs, that in turn will put the ability for us to divert those resources into further relieving poverty in many parts of the world. When families get the nourishment that they need, we see education outcomes rise, we see healthcare costs fall, we see economic activity improve, and when in the United States the number one disqualifier for military service is obesity, we might even be able to strengthen our security as well. So the good news is that because of the work of many of you, the innovations that you are already investing in, we're starting to see a better way to feed a growing planet, combat hunger and malnutrition, put healthy food on the table, save our environment. And none of this is impossible. We can look at the successes that we've already made. In just the past decade, the number of undernourished people in the world is down by more than 160 million. If you think about the achievements of the Green Revolution, which put hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, if you look at microfinance, an area where my mother devoted herself in developing nations, rural poor have been empowered. If you look at the expansion of education, especially for girls, the power of vaccines to eliminate smallpox, to reduce the incidence of measles and pneumonia. We've saved lives of hundreds of millions of people worldwide. If you look at the progress we've made with HIV/AIDS, which has brought us to the point where we can, for the first time, imagine the real possibility of an AIDS-free generation, all this tells us that if we seize the future, there's nothing we cannot do. I do not believe that any part of the world has to be condemned to perpetual poverty and hunger, and I do not believe that this planet is condemned to ever-rising temperatures. I believe these are problems that were caused by man, and they can be solved by man. We can unleash the change that reduces hunger and malnutrition. We can spark the growth that will release nations from poverty, and we can reverse the tides of climate change and usher in a smarter and more sustainable world. And I'm found quoting the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who believed that there is such a thing as being too late. When it comes to climate change, the hour is almost upon us. If we act boldly and swiftly, if we set aside our parochial interests in favor of the air that our young people will breathe and the food that they will eat and the water that they will drink, if we think about them and their hopes and dreams, then we will act, and it won't be too late. And we can leave behind a world that is worthy of our children, where there's reduced conflict and greater cooperation, a world marked not by human suffering, but by human progress. That is what we have to work on together. And when I listened to Morgan in the introduction, it's young people like her in particular that give me great confidence that we will succeed. So with that, what I'd like to do now is to start our conversation, and I want to introduce to you a great friend, a very good chef, although I have to say that he admits that in Milan he may not be the best chef, that there are better chefs in the audience here today. Mr. Sam Kass, please welcome Mr. Sam Kass.
So former President Obama will now have a little mini conversation, sort of a sit-down conversation with this chef. And suffice to say, we know President Obama ate pretty well when he was in Washington. I'm here in Washington now. The food scene here is incredible. It's growing every day, week to week. And now he gets to have this cool conversation. I'm sure he'll know a lot about what he's talking about. I think as far as what we saw from the reports, he and Michelle had a great sort of food culture over in Milan. Looks like the video cuts for a second. I'm going to bring you back to myself here in the newsroom, guys. We're going to go back to a second to that feed, but I hope you're enjoying it. I'm just trying to bring you a mix of news from today. I'm here in Washington, D.C. It's awesome to hear where you guys are watching from, so let me know so I can give a shout out to your town and where you are watching Fox 5 Live from. We're here in Washington. We got news from all over the world and Washington. Check out a live look at the White House right here. We're going to bring you back to this conversation with former President Obama in Milan from earlier this morning. And we had to pre-tape it because it was earlier than the show, so it all happened, obviously, with the time change. We got a little bit skewed with the hours there, but let's bring it back to this video, this conversation with former President Barack Obama.
Involved what we're calling the Obama Presidential Center. Our goal is to set up the premier institution in the United States, but also to work with other countries to train the next generation of leadership for activism. Because when I was president, wherever I'd go, I would always meet with young people. And it would always give me energy and inspiration to see how much talent and sophistication and optimism and idealism existed among young people in the United States, here in Italy, all across Europe, all across Asia, Africa, the Middle East. The problem is, so often, young people's voices aren't heard, and when they want to get involved in issues, they don't know how, and they don't have the tools. So Matteo and I and others have been talking about how we can create an effective network of global activists, some who are in politics, some who are in business, some who are in journalism or working for NGOs, and provide them the tools, the training, the networks, the relationships, the funding, so that they can be even more effective. And that's probably what I'm going to be spending most of the next 10 years on, because you notice I have a lot of gray hair now. People always ask me, "Oh, Mr. President, you know, we need you and we want you involved," and I'm happy to get involved. But the greatest thing I think I can give is to make sure that somebody who's 20 years old, 21, 25, who are ready to make their mark in the world, that I can help them so that they can take it to the next level.
Yeah. So when you so focusing on leadership, when you look back at your trajectory, at what point did you see yourself as a leader? And was there a moment that really helped you turn a corner and sort of identify yourself in that light? Because so much, as you talk about.
Interesting here. If you guys are just joining us, you're watching former President Obama from earlier this morning speak at an International Food Innovation Summit in Milan, Italy. He's now having a conversation with a chef there in Milan. And I'm interested to hear where you guys are from. So don't forget to let me know where you guys are watching from. I'm here in Washington, D.C. You can kind of see behind me. I'm in this little enclosed digital space to bring you this daily weekday show with live and breaking news and just interesting stuff that might be talkers, might be worth chatting about on our chat. Great to hear from you guys. Keep on with us and listen in to former President Obama, who never fails to make a crack about his age and how he's getting older and gray in this casual setting with his non-tie wearing shirt and open shirt here and relaxed suit. Let's listen in.
I got a job working with low-income communities in Chicago, and what I learned was that the mark of a good leader is somebody who is able to empower other people. So often we think of leadership as somebody at the top who is ordering other people around. But it turns out that, for me at least, what made me understand leadership was when I could see somebody who thought they didn't have a voice, thought they didn't have influence or didn't have power, and teach them how they could speak up on the things that were affecting their lives.
Right.
And you know, when we think about issues like food security or climate change, ultimately politicians can help guide policy. But the energy to bring about change is going to come from what people do every day. It's going to come from parents who are concerned about the kind of impact that climate change may have on their children. It's going to come from enlightened business people who say, how can we use less energy or waste less resources in producing the products that we're making?
Yeah.
It's millions of decisions that are being made individually that end up having as much impact as anything, and that's certainly true in our democracies. People have a tendency to blame politicians when things don't work, but as I always tell people, you get the politicians you deserve. And if you don't vote and you don't participate and if you don't pay attention, then you'll get policies that don't reflect your interests.
That's right. Democracy is messy, but it works. So just looking back a little bit, you know, I remember on the campaign, you'd be on the road constantly. You'd come home for like one meal a week, see the girls, and then back out you went, down 30 points. Nobody was, you know, really listening. That you were just starting to get traction. You feel like the same guy to me. How do you look back on that guy back then? Because obviously, so much has changed. You've been through so much. How do you look back on yourself then?
You know, well, you've known me for what, 20 years now?
Something like that.
I think the people who know me best would say I have not changed much.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about that. one of the dangers of being in the public eye, being in the spotlight, being in positions of power is how it will change your soul.
And that is just about the end of our feed there, guys. I only got a piece of his little conversation from earlier this morning. But I want to thank you guys for watching, for engaging with us. It's awesome to hear where you're all from. I'm going to give you guys a shout out because I said I would. So we got Wendell from Tallahassee. Shout out to where you're watching from. That's awesome. From Florida, formerly of Westchester. Cool. I'm very familiar with Westchester, New York. I myself am from New England originally. So big shout out to my home state of Rhode Island. I love it. And it sounds like you guys have all moved all over. So it's awesome to hear that we have viewers from all over engaging with us and watching with us. Okay, we'll change gears a little bit. I'm going to go over to this cool video shot by one of our awesome photojournalists here at Fox 5 DC. Hang on one second. I'm going to set it up. It is a new trend. And let me tell you this. Speaking of we're talking about all over, sort of where things are from and all over the nation. We're all kind of, coming together here. This is an original trend that I read first as coming out of Albany, Oregon. So an area way outside of Portland, or a little bit outside of Portland in Oregon. All right, I'm just going to tell you, it's goat yoga. So it's the trend of doing yoga on a farm with goats. I don't know who's interested in this, but it is a super cool new phenomenon. I'm going to show you some behind the scenes pictures of myself. I got to do it this past weekend. I decided to go out there, brought a college friend along with me to do it, and it was super fun. Shout out to Sebastian who did this with me. And check out this video from our photojournalist, Chip Baisden, who put this all together to kind of highlight what this is all about. Watch it.
This is your second time doing this?
The neighbors, they have no idea what's going on here. Yeah, they think we're some sort of hippie commune, I think.
I paid online.
Yep. What's going on here?
My son is down there to let people through the gate.
I'm Alicia McMaster with Silver Maple Farm out in Berryville, Virginia. The crazy goat lady.
She knows her goats.
We are doing goat yoga.
Exhale as you draw the arms back down. And 1. Exhale, release down. Continuing to breathe here. 4, 3, and 2, and 1. And we hold. Just the idea of it sounded so much fun.
Last fall, my friends on Facebook were forwarding me these crazy looking videos of other people doing goat yoga.
I'd never heard of it.
A lot of my friends knew that I had goats.
I didn't believe her right away. Totally thought she was joking with me. Like, you're kidding, right? That's not a real thing.
It is a thing. I think one just opened in the UK recently.
She go, no, it is.
There's a couple other places in the United States.
And I thought, gosh, this is legit.
Yeah, it's spreading. It's great.
Both legs are still grounded. Try to be as straight as possible and let this knee not cave in. Extended triangle.
We have a milking operation here. They're all Nigerian dwarf goats, and they give us milk for our family, and we make soap and fudge. They're kind of like dogs, very individual personalities on each of them. Some are more playful, some are a little bit more laid back.
They're very social. They love to be pet.
They love people. They really like to be up underneath people. Some goats really like to nibble on toes, especially toes that have polish on them.
It's not a bite.
Some people might enjoy that and other people might not so much.
They like to nibble and there's no teeth.
Pulling on hair, they're obsessed with hair, so I always keep mine up. Almost all the goats out there are females, except the babies, and there are a couple of babies out there that are bucklings, boys. Yeah, you wouldn't want the bucks, the adult boys. They're actually very sweet, but they smell.
Start moving your body in conjunction with your breath. Roll forward as you reach.
They love the yoga mats.
They just curl up and make themselves comfortable.
They think it's their own personal bed or something. had a couple of people that as soon as they get through the gate, it's one track. They're headed for those goats, and they want to play with them and love on them.
More of a playful, enjoy nature energy than what you get in a class. If people want to sit down and just play with the goats, it's great. If people want to take pictures, great. Versus me being concerned about everybody following a certain sequence or being okay in each pose.
Guys are just adorable. Goat massage.
Yeah, I catch them. And a lot of people who drove, all of them said the same thing. It was even peaceful just driving out, getting out of the city and getting into the country.
Listen to the birds, feel the grass under your feet, play with some goats, and de-stress at the same time.
That's the whole thing, just being in the moment, enjoying, and it's meant to be a way to relax, to unwind, and the combination between being outside with the goats and the beautiful weather, and just it's a beautiful combination. We would have never guessed that this would have been something, you know, such an amazing opportunity. Option 3, extend the leg. Make yourself comfy.
What you don't see at home is Matt Slusher, our floor director, was in here talking about growing up on a goat.
So guys, that was a package that we brought to you guys on one of our evening broadcasts on TV, and was put together by our photojournalist, Chip Bays. And I thought it was so well done and so gorgeous. So I wanted to make sure I brought that to you. And thanks so much for your comments on goats. And if you guys are familiar with them and farm life and just what it's like, really crazy. I want to share with you my own experience with this. So I had to try it. I went out there on Sunday, and I'm going to show you some behind the scenes pictures of myself trying this and what it was like. And I got to meet April, who you saw in the video, who runs the yoga program. I'm not technically a yogi, but I'm quite familiar with yoga in general and other practices of the like. And so that portion was really exciting for me. And just like being amongst the goats, like you guys are saying, they're very playful and they really are like pets. I definitely felt that in their presence in that sort of gated off area. So I'm going to put together this little slideshow for you guys. For now, I'm going to bring you over just to a shot of the Capitol so you can see this beautiful blue sky while I put together this little slideshow of my experience with the goats on Sunday. I want to share that with you. So stay with us. We'll be right back. All right. Hey, guys, it's Molly here. Thanks for checking in with us. Joe, shout out to Kansas City, Missouri. Awesome. I have a good friend from Liberty, Missouri from college, so I'm quite familiar with that area. I'm putting together this little slideshow for you guys of my behind the scenes at Goat Yoga. I have to show you what it looked like just from a normal person going to try this out. And honestly, I will say it was quite fascinating. It was a little distracting. That's my biggest takeaway. The distraction was that you're sort of amongst this and you're amongst nature and amongst animals, but you're supposed to be sort of engaged in two things, right? Your yoga practice and then also enjoying it with the animals. So contrary to some of your beliefs, the goats don't actually do the yoga, but they're there with you. And it's just sort of a fun environment to sort of be outside, be in farm life and whatnot. So I'm efforting this to put this together for you guys. Just hang on one more minute. Enjoy this gorgeous shot of the Capitol with blue skies coming at you from Washington, D.C. Okay, guys, ready. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this cool behind the scenes video, and we're going to continue on through the slideshow. So check it out right here. Let's see if this works.
Poses to make this practice the most comfortable for you, okay? So just please feel free to laugh, be playful, take pictures. If you decide you just want to break from the yoga and want to sit and play with the goats, I'm okay with it. Okay, this is a very, playful and just open to nature practice. At the end, we usually end in a pose called Savasana, which is where we just lay down and completely relax. Now that we've done this a few times, some people are really ready to go and just want to lay there and relax. Other people want to sit and just start playing with the goats. So I'm going to give you options, which is a little different. For those of you who have been in a studio before, it's not usually ever an option, but I'm going to give you options while we're here. And then you can just go with what works best for you. Okay? Does anybody have any questions for me before we begin?
Cool, right? So it was really open, and she was creating this really open environment. Modify here. For practicing yoga, and you could stop and play with the goats and whatnot. So here's some pictures I gathered together. Let's see if this works. All right. All right, guys. Working on this for you so I can bring you these pictures. I really wanted to show you guys. She opened the session. You're right. She was so cool about it, and just everyone was just it was an open community type of thing. All right, here we go. Let's show you these pics. I'll jump up in the corner of your screen here so I can sort of narrate. So that's what it looked like. This was a big group in the farm. Sorry, guys, working on efforting this out. Having some technical difficulties here with the player. All right, we have a minor crash here with the player, but I'm going to see what I can show you. Flipping you back over to the Capitol for now. We're going to work on this. Stay with us, guys.
Again, on my channel.
All right, guys, we are also going to be jumping in next to the White House. So take a look at the outside of the White House here. We're going to go inside to the White House press briefing room. This is what it looks like. They're gathering everyone together to get them ready for Sean Spicer. I am going to bring you my pictures. I promise you I'm efforting that. Thank you so much for staying with me. You guys totally get it. The software, computer craziness, it is never ending. So I'm going to work on it and bring you those pictures, and then we're going to get ready for this White House press briefing. That is coming up next. Take a look here at this podium and the reporters gathering together to get ready for Sean Spicer. He'll be coming out shortly, and I'm going to effort these pictures and bring them to you also in a very short while. Stay with us, guys.
They actually take real money for people to buy fake ones. That's all right. What a business model, though. Yeah, it is. Yeah, candy crush or something. I quite figured that out. Nice. Damn it, that's on you like that? Yes.
All right, guys, I'm going to jump back in. We're going to go back over to my goat pictures. Here we go. Before we go to the briefing room, you'll get like 10 seconds on each one. I'll explain them. So this was what the big crowd looked like. This was us getting ready sort of inside that gated pen. And this should kind of switch over. I'll just flip on myself here. The next one is an up-close picture of a goat that I got. I thought it was a gorgeous shot. These are very friendly animals. They just sit around you and they sort of help you throughout. It's a very peaceful time. Gorgeous spring day this past Sunday. This is me and one of the goats, my favorite one, the little tiny black goat, on my yoga mat there, just getting ready for the class. Some other classmates behind me. Let's see if we can effort a few more here. Some of the goats just surprise you, come over on the mat and just are very friendly during the practice. After the practice, we got some grain to feed them, so it was a very cool experience to kind of attract them over. And then this is me welcoming just a group of goats. You can see they're old and young, sort of. Mostly they're female. There's a couple males in there, but mostly female goats. The babies obviously are in there. Definitely a type of therapeutic experience like you were saying there. Gorgeous day. Couple more shots of the goats. Remember, we are coming up on the White House press briefing. Thanks to Texas, US, that I would make a better White House press secretary. I don't know if that's true, but thank you for the compliment. Not sure if I'd like speaking up at that podium and facing everything Sean Spicer faces every day. Let's check the next picture here. I have a string of photos here. Let's see if they're going to work. Come on. There it is. Oh, I did a little pose. This is me doing a bridge pose with one of the goats. Got him up there with some grain, lured him up there. So I guess in effect, they kind of did some of the yoga. Some more goats here, just amongst the grain here that we just spread out on the grass. Me and another goat. You can kind of sling them over your shoulder like a purse. Super fun to engage with these guys. What's next? Just some more shots of that same one. Super easy to perch them on your shoulder, and they're small and light and very friendly. So just like little pets. What else do I have? Yeah, so just a few shots from the farm. This is all out in Berryville. I had the Chiron up there earlier. Berryville, Virginia. So it's out there near like Bluemont, Round Hill, pretty close to the West Virginia border. So it's not very close, actually. It's actually, I thought it would be closer than it was. A lot of gorgeous estates out there, wineries, breweries, cideries. Kind of a cool long shot here, 16:9 in nature of the goats through the gate. All different shapes and sizes, different colors. Such a fun time doing that. Oh, thanks for the compliment. It's a cool shot of the goats. We enjoyed it, so it was fun to get out there. And I think that's all I have. Yeah. Oh, this is a goat jumping off of me. Obviously, he did not want to be there, but you can see him like kind of mid-action. I thought that was a cool action shot. I think that's all I got. Maybe one last one. Yep, that might be it, guys. It's going black on me. We're going to bring you back to the briefing room. Check it out. Everyone's getting ready to go. This happens usually daily at 1 o'clock or 1:30. And we've been hearing from Sean Spicer for months now since the administration started. We did have one day with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, his deputy press secretary. Sean Spicer was off, and we heard from her. She is the daughter of Mike Huckabee. So that was sort of interesting, a little change up when we heard from her on the podium. Today, we are slated for Sean Spicer, so that is coming up shortly. You can hear sort of the mumbles of the crowd, the reporters getting ready for their live shots, getting ready to take some notes. This, again, is inside. This is the wide shot of the White House right now, so it's a live shot. And then we take you right inside to this shot. Gorgeous shot set up for the media there. And our reporter, Ronica Cleary, is there. She always covers the briefings, or typically she's been covering the briefings, and sometimes she'll give us an inside look of the White House. So stay tuned to our channel for more of that. I'm going to try to bring her on once a week or maybe once every couple weeks to talk more about the White House inner workings and give us a little tour of the White House for you guys, especially you guys who are taking a tour, or sorry, who are watching from elsewhere. You know, you're not really always privy to these inside looks of Washington, so we want to bring that to you because we're right here hanging out in D.C., our nation's capital, and so we got cameras that we can run to cool events, and this is one of them that we take from our pool, the overarching parent company. We got our camera in there with the pool, so we will come up on Sean Spicer next. Let us know what you guys think. Thanks for the comments on my shots from Goat Yoga. Had a great time taking some beautiful shots of the goats. Really good time bringing you those inside, behind the scenes looks. So stay right here with us. We're coming up. A couple minutes hopefully to go. Sean Spicer, and I'll check back in with you guys shortly. Stay with us.
Got all those plans.
I will be happy to support. Yes.
South Dakota is 2 hours. So for me to get to South Dakota is and then you start looking at so we're going to go to Minnesota, which is
So, guys, I think the biggest, some of the big hot topics today that Sean Spicer will be faced with are reaction to the Sally Yates testimony yesterday, talking about the Russia investigations, if Russia had an influence on the election, and that whole testimony to those senators that questioned her yesterday. That will probably be a big topic of discussion. We're also concerned, of course, with just Trump's general affairs, where he's at today and tomorrow and this week, and Sean Spicer will enlighten us as to what is going on and what is on the forefront for his schedule. That is pretty much his opening spiel, and then it will open up for reporters to ask questions. So we'll see what comes out of that with the questions about Sally Yates. We also have been hearing some stuff about, is it too soon to be thinking about contenders for the election in 2020? You know, is it too soon for people to start questioning, you know, Elizabeth Warren? She's been on people's minds for possibly contending against President Trump 4 years down the line. But, you know, we're just barely into the administration. It is quite early. You know, that's the question. So people will be exploring that today. Again, our reporter, Ronica Cleary, will have her live shot, generally covering the White House press briefing and other White House and presidential affairs tonight on our evening broadcast. So if you can't turn into TV, I'm here for you on digital. We want to bring you this YouTube channel during the day to just cover live events that are happening. Looks like we have a live stakeout of some senators who are speaking vis-a-vis, let's see if we have this. I had it coming in a second ago. Let's jump it over there. Stakeout camera in the Senate.
Well, what do you need?
Looks like some people are facing questions about the testimony yesterday.
Misstated the allegations against saying that she forwarded classified information.
I decided about a year ago not to try to figure out what Mr. Comey was saying.
Senator, can you talk about the healthcare negotiations?
Your reaction to the news that the FBI director may have misstated how many emails Huma Abedin sent to her husband?
I want to know what the numbers were. So my reaction is, let's get the information right. Were they classified? Was it 1 classified? Was it 10 classified? Was it 0 classified? The thing that really matters is classified information.
Does it surprise you that the FBI director would get a detail like this wrong? He clearly knew you were going to ask about it.
Well, I'm not so much worried about him correcting the record as in what did happen. Were there classified? Did Miss Abedin send classified information to her husband to be run off on a computer? That's the question. And the answer is, yes, she did. He says it's not a crime.
So it sounds like the reality is that she sporadically sent emails to her husband, but they weren't classified, at least not at the time.
He said they were. That's what he said. Now, as he retracted that, I don't know, but he said classified information was sent to Anthony Weiner by his wife. That's what he said. I don't know, is that still true?
That's not that. What sources within the FBI are saying is that none of the material was classified at the time. There are a few details that were retroactive.
Well, that'd be important. I mean, if at the time she sent them, they weren't classified, that'd be, I don't know why they weren't classified, but he gave the impression that classified information was sent to Anthony Weiner by his wife. If that's not true, it's good that he corrected it.
Senator, why are you interested in
launching a probe to look at Trump's business affairs?
What's that?
Why are you interested in launching a probe into Trump's business?
I have no evidence that the Trump business organization did anything illegal with the Russians. I have no evidence of collusion. But do I want to know about business ties? Yes. Do I want to know who leaked the information about General Flynn to the Washington Post? Yes. Do I want to know what Russia is doing now? Yes. Do I want to find out what they actually did in the past? Yes. So this is nothing new here. I'm not a prosecutor, but if you ask me, do I want to know, are there any Trump business ties to Russia that are inappropriate? The answer would be yes. I have no evidence of any, but I want to know anything about collusion. I want to know about who unmasked American citizens and what did they do with the information. I want to know what Russia's doing today, not what they did in just the campaign. So I don't know how that got all spun out, but I have nothing new about Russian and Trump business ties. But am I interested? I'm interested in all things Russia, with everybody.
Shifting gears slightly, what's your thoughts on the possible troop expansion in Afghanistan?
I think we should do it sooner rather than later, that the counterterrorism forces in Afghanistan are not sufficient to deal with the growing threats to the homeland. If I were President Trump, I'd put more American forces on the ground in Afghanistan as soon as possible to deal with the increased international terrorism activity inside of Afghanistan. There are about 98 groups that are on the international terrorist list, 20 or 30 operating inside Afghanistan. I think the primary responsibility of the president is to protect the American homeland. If you don't add more troops into Afghanistan, you can have a situation for another 9/11. It is our national security interest to have more troops in Afghanistan as an insurance policy against another 9/11.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Thanks, sir.
The FBI director potentially misstating how many emails, the degree to which people Abby was sending emails to her husband.
Well, I don't know the facts. I would just say that all of us have to be extremely concerned to get the information right, to get the right reports, and to know what's going on. The bottom line is we cannot have foreign country influence in our elections in the future, and there's a lot out there right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's just the way this is just so. I'll get better clarification for you.
Senator Shelby, do you have a second for CBS News?
Just, I mean, it's worthless for us because we got mixed out. I'm just.
Senator Leahy, do you have a minute for CBS News?
Yeah.
Can you comment to FBI Director Comey's misstatements last week at the hearing where he said that Huma Abedin transferred hundreds or thousands of emails to FBI?
There have been so many misstatements on this, it's hard to pick out one. I've only seen headlines. I haven't seen what they're talking about, and I don't believe in foreign policy by Twitter. I'd like to see the details.
The FBI the number of Huma Abedin's emails?
I need to read the details before I have a comment. I did see a headline about it, but I haven't read the details.
All right, so there you go, guys. Little Senate stakeout cam for you. Hope you enjoyed that. I think it is pretty cool, too. Thanks for the people who are commenting here. Wendell saying that you like the stakeout cam. It is pretty neat to see that pooled cam. Some of the senators just brushing off those questions, some of them giving one-lined answers, some of them more detailed, some of them haven't read all the details and don't have anything to sort of give those reporters or the media. But it is kind of interesting to see that. Obviously, they're being questioned about some of Comey's remarks when he was testifying, director of the FBI, and also remarks from, I don't think I heard any Sally Yates questions, but possibly there were some things about that. That's what I think Sean Spicer is going to be questioned for today at the podium. You can see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, we're getting ready for that podium there inside the White House. Let me bring you a picture of the outside. Take this off. That's what it looks like. We're going to dip it on inside to the White House press briefing room with Sean Spicer shortly. I'm just reading some of your comments here. Oh, yeah, definitely some interesting stuff here. Talking about not deploying any more troops. Interesting comments here, observations. Yeah, it definitely is cool when a senator takes the time to speak with the media at all. I thought it was interesting too, not all of them brushing it off, just sort of seeing the camera, seeing the lights, but being willing to make a statement. Even if it's something they haven't read about, they'll willingly say that, hey, I don't have all the information here. You know, I'll speak it to you another time. So I think it is really cool too. Thanks for your comments, guys. Molly for president. Thank you. I think the farthest I'll ever go with that, I was president of my high school senior class. That's as far as I'm going. But thank you so much for that comment. That's funny. Yep, Sean Spicer coming up next. We'll bring you that live here on Fox 5 Live. We'll bring up the volume here. You can see as they prep for the briefing. Here it comes.
Extending those vulnerabilities that are really expected to be die or any age. But it's also it applies to but it also works on the system. It's very hard to get it out. Nothing against the whatever that is, makes it come so it doesn't just land at your feet, you know. And as this type of thing, that's so no one can get out of bed pretty fast in the morning, like that, and that doesn't happen to me. I've tried. There you go. It's almost
Hey guys, if you're watching on YouTube, a great question. How many seats are there in the White House press briefing room? So an updated map tells me it's 7 by 7. There are 49 seats, but then press members, correspondents, and journalists, any members of the media line up along the sides as well if they don't have an official spot. So it's an interesting sort of laid out seating chart for this official White House briefing room, the press briefing room. So Sean Spicer will take the podium and speak to these people. So each of those people, each of those organizations, 49 of them have an individual spot. You know, it's sort of, like I said, seats, rows 7 by 7, and then other people also line the outside. But great question. Continue to chat with us, engage with us, guys. On YouTube, we want to hear your thoughts and your questions that we can answer, hopefully, about what this is all about. So as for how many exact press members are actually in the room in the moment, hard to say, but we do know the exact, the seating chart itself, 49 press members have a seat. Don't know how long it takes Sean Spicer to know their names, but he does call them out by name, which is awesome. I wonder if it's sort of at the beginning of his term, at the administration, at the change of the administration, you know, he's required to learn a certain amount or how he comes about learning them. But that's a great question. Thanks for chatting with us, guys. We're also going to be putting this on our Facebook page if you want to follow along on Fox 5 DC's Facebook timeline. We'll be posting this live press briefing when Sean Spicer comes up to the podium. So stay with us here on YouTube and feel free to chat and comment on Facebook as well if you want to join us on our Facebook page, Fox 5 DC. All right, this is coming right up, guys. Should be hopefully a 2-minute warning shortly. Sean Spicer in the White House press briefing room.
I'm exhausted. It's like one time he's here. He's coming to see as he's walking towards us, I go, hello, and everybody goes, wow. And he goes, I don't get it. He just started laughing. He goes, I don't get it. I really don't think he knew what it was. Yeah. It's made it funny. Did you see that BBC reporter who does a whole interview and he goes, well, I have to tell you, it's very long on jokes. And they go, what's that? He's like, so long on this pizza. He said, would you like to drink it? He goes, I would like one with all. The guy goes, you don't understand, do you? He goes, no. No, I don't get it. I was like, one with all. One with all. So then they told me, listen to that.
Hey guys who are watching on YouTube, great questions on our chat. Someone asked who gets to ask questions and are they pre-vetted. What we know is that typically the Trump administration has run things a little bit more unconventionally. Sean Spicer has been calling on a variety of networks first, where in the past it was more common for the Associated Press to ask the question first, or to be called on rather first. So typically there has not essentially been an exact order, but the AP has usually been able to ask the question first. This administration, Sean Spicer, has been changing it up a bit. He's been calling on people like the New York Post first and ABC News. So definitely a little bit of a change in this administration, but I believe he got to know the names and or has a map in front of him, but they are able to ask these questions, and I don't believe there is any vetting process. But that is a great question to explore a little further and read up on just how this whole process works. At the beginning of the Trump administration, this White House press briefing room was practically standing room only, where reporters who had designated seats took them and others just gathered along the sides and was packed in. So particularly at the beginning of this administration, that's what we saw. in this room, just a packed room, not everybody having seats and whatnot. So we'll see what happens here. This should hopefully start soon. Typically it starts a few minutes late or later than is scheduled. And we'll see who we get to hear from first and who he calls on first this time. But he'll run through the president's schedule and then go for the Q&A session afterwards from that podium. So once again, thanks for watching, guys. Click subscribe on our channel and hop on over to Facebook if you want to catch this as well. Sometimes we cross stream the briefing and other interesting live events as well. So don't forget to follow us there. We'll check back in after the briefing. Guys, an interesting thing with the Trump administration here, Sean Spicer has sometimes taken questions over Skype. So someone's mentioning remote questions, and that's actually sort of a common thing that we've seen in this administration. We've seen is him sort of just branch off and take this into a new way. And you're right, I think everything sort of is trending in that direction. Remote questions, Skyping, video conferencing in, talkbacks. So where I don't personally have a question for him, our reporter, Ronica Cleary, is there to get the information. You may hear her pipe up, so listen for Sean calling out her name, Ronica, and then you'll hear our reporter from Fox 5 DC in the room covering these briefings. So definitely an interesting concept to bring that up, the remote questions. And Sean Spicer has been known to do that, sort of a modern way of taking in questions from people not in DC, not around this area. So pretty interesting from this year's administration. So a lot of new things. We are going to leave it here, and hopefully Sean Spicer will come out soon. We'll see. Sometimes he gets caught up in presidential affairs and meetings and setting people up for the next sort of event. So we'll see what happens here next. Thanks for watching, guys.
If he's not out by 2, I will.
You can hear me, Eric? Eric? Hello, Eric. You got me? Did you dial in? Somebody trying to talk to me? Because it's not working if it is. If somebody's trying to talk to me.
Well, Craig, we hope to see him soon. About 25 minutes behind right now as we await Sean Spicer's arrival back in the briefing room. This will be our first opportunity really to pepper him with questions, specifically after Sally Yates' testimony. The dramatic element of that testimony was the fact that on January 26th and 27th, in the course of 2 meetings with the White House counsel, she delivered the message, a warning to this White House that Michael Flynn, then the national security advisor, they were aware had been lying. They said the Russians knew it, and he could potentially be compromised. They say he could be blackmailed. So the question to this White House, among others today, will be, if that was the case, why 1 day later, on January 28th, did Michael Flynn participate in a phone call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin? Among the questions we'll try to ask on this day. Also in the headline.
So guys, you'll start to see some of the reporters do some live shots and send some information back to their anchors or to their stations in a pre-taped element here just prior to this briefing. So it seems like he's still a few minutes off, if not more, we don't know, because these guys are gearing up to do, these live shots for whatever outlet they're attached to. Let us know. Don't forget to let us know in the questions and in the chat what you're thinking about and what you think of the topics covered in today's briefing. The briefings can go long, they can go short sometimes, they can be, cut off, truncated, and other times just randomly. So, yeah, we will see how this one is today. And if anything sort of sparks your interest, don't forget to pipe up and let us know. We want to hear sort of what you like to watch and what we can make note of and chat about as well over our chat here.
Pardon me?
Again, thanks for watching on YouTube. Click subscribe to see when we are on live, and jump on over to Facebook as well. Look us up there, Fox 5 DC, and you can catch other live streams that we put up on our Facebook, including this White House press briefing today. So we'll be watching for your comments there. So stay with us here on YouTube as well. And yeah, we'll chat with you guys soon.
So which are the Trump tweets now? I just want to make sure I got the order right here. Yeah. Okay, ditch the Russia collusion one, because that was supposed to go with Rogers. Thank you.
Guys, if you're still with us here, check out some of Donald Trump's tweets recently after yesterday's hearing with Sally Yates, talking about the Russia-Trump collusion being a hoax, citing fake news multiple times. Right there at the right-hand corner of your screen, I pulled some of his tweets out. So those are perhaps to be questioned today. We'll have to see sort of who talks about that and if they do. But definitely Donald Trump's tweets have been a discussion and a talk. He was also celebrating National Teacher Day today. We saw that protest with a protest against Paul Ryan today in New York City. So President Trump had another event regarding that. Sean Spicer will likely chat about that as well. But definitely his tweets, quite the talk, I think, today, as they particularly sometimes are. And we'll see if we get any reporter questions about what he's been tweeting out. I don't know what you guys think about that, or if you have any comments on President Trump's tweets. But that is a topic of discussion for sure.
So here we are.
All right.
Yeah, guys, I think we'll plan to broadcast this on Facebook when it comes up. So we don't want to leave people hanging with the podium. So for now, we can just sort of chat about what you think, and then we're going to throw it over to Facebook concurrently with YouTube. So you can chat on either platform that you choose. Don't forget to check in with us and let us know what you think about some of these people's questions and some of Sean Spicer's statements. We'll see how crazy it gets. It can get kind of raucous sometimes in the room. Sometimes it's a little more just kind of calm, and Sean Spicer does his thing and then gets out of there. So we'll see how quick it goes. We can listen into some of these reporters' live shots as we wait.
Don began that Flynn had been talking with the Russians, had been talking with them about things that perhaps he shouldn't have been talking about. He'd been lying to the White House about it, specifically the vice president about it, and therefore could be vulnerable to blackmail if the Russians ever wanted to try to use that leverage against him. We also learned from talking with former Obama administration officials that 2 days after the election, President Obama warned President Trump, or President-elect Trump at the time, against hiring Flynn as the national security advisor, basically saying, from my experience with him at the Defense Intelligence Agency, you could probably find somebody better to be your national security advisor. But the narrative that the White House is going with today is the fact that the leak should be the story as to who it was that leaked Flynn's name after he was caught up in surveillance. President Trump asking in a tweet last night, quote, ask Sally Yates under oath if she knows how classified information got into the newspaper soon after she explained it to the White House counsel. And then tweeting, quote, biggest story today between Clapper and Yates is on surveillance. Why doesn't the media report on this? Hashtag fake news. We'll get a chance to ask the press secretary, Sean Spicer, about all of that when he comes out. So far, he's a half an hour late. This was scheduled for 1:30. We expect he will be coming out in the next few minutes, though, Muriel.
Relitigate that issue, one that he had addressed many weeks ago, but now with the new information from the former Department of Justice official, we'll certainly be peppering with questions about that.
Thank you.
Also, more broadly, questions today about some foreign policy decision-making. This White House now considering the war that America's going to Afghanistan, potentially escalating those conditions. 3,000 more American troops heading that direction. Among the questions on that topic, what specifically is the threat to America's national security at stake there in Afghanistan? As today, who says that ISIS has been pushed back, but obviously Taliban has proven itself increasingly confident and resurgent. So that'll be among the questions that we focus on here today. And then finally, the topic of healthcare again in the news as the Senate now takes over the reins, trying to cobble together its own bill. That working group with 13 older white Republicans now, the White House saying maybe adding a female senator. We'll ask that question as well, as there's yet no indication from those senators in that group that that's occurred yet. Katie?
So like you heard, guys, Sean Spicer is more than a half hour late. This happens sometimes. Sometimes he is very quick to come out. Sometimes he's just a few minutes late, but this is a big one today. So he'll likely have a quick word to explain why he was later today, to update the press on the president's goings-on today. But great note. Thanks for that chat about McCarthy hosting SNL this weekend. That should be interesting. We've seen some interesting SNL episodes and this season in the new administration. So always fun to kind of see that and see if Sean Spicer even makes a comment about it himself, sometimes after the fact. Yeah, thanks for chatting with us, guys, and joining along with us. This should be coming up shortly, hopefully not too much longer. And we'll see what kept him today from being on time. So that is coming up shortly. Stay with us. Once again, we'll be a half hour late, a little more than a half hour late. We'll be up on YouTube here and on Facebook shortly from the White House press briefing room. And our reporter, Veronica Cleary, is there. Hopefully she gets a question in. I know I've heard her been called on a few times in the past week from Sean Spicer, so that's always fun to see what kind of questions she gets in today. And yeah, that should be coming up soon, guys. So stay with us. Let us know if you have any questions or thoughts. And yeah, we'll be here for you.
Tweets about this idea of collusion between Trump team members and Russian operatives, describing it as a total hoax. They've tried to distance themselves from that issue. We're getting our 2-minute warning as I speak to you. Katie, so we should see Sean in a moment on this, where they have distanced themselves from this idea that President Trump had any improper relations and improper contacts with Russia. It's a point that I expect they'll try to find today.
They might have been just saying peace.
Why did he go like this?
Peace, brother.
2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes.
It could be 30 seconds, it could be 10 minutes.
My camera guy goes.
Based on what? Based on what?
Inside information, dude. I just say what they tell me. They know what I'm talking about.
That was FPPO.
At least he didn't do this.
Well, that may have been what he was doing. Did you do it like this?
He did Sammy Sosa, and that was weird.
Here's a baseball game on.
When the front row was doing something like this, I was like, okay.
30 minutes later.
Alright, that's fine.
Hey, listen to that thing with the Air Force football team.
Yeah.
Giovanna gave me
25 minutes?
Didn't have until 20 minutes.
Champion runner? 40? Going on. I can't. Over under out. 44. You understand the idea of over under? It's a number. It's a number. And then you guys. Where would I find that? So, based on your drawings and stuff,
Send me accurate
Peter's on the phone. Hold on. Sorry, I'm late. Wrapping up some business. Good afternoon. The president this morning met with General McMaster. As you know, General McMaster is helping lead the team that's organizing the president's upcoming foreign trip. And this week, the president has been focused on meeting with the team, getting ready for the various stops that he'll be making and meetings that he's going to be having. During his many conversations with world leaders, the president has seen a great desire for America to re-engage and be a leader once again in helping solve the world's complex problems. And he's already made moves both behind the scenes with leaders and his public statements to show them that America is reasserting its leadership on the world stage. These visits are another important part of this American resurgence. While on the trip, the president will further our strategic objectives in the region, creating new opportunities that will strengthen the United States and our allies while weakening our enemies. I know many of you are interested in the logistical aspects of this trip, and we'll be trying to have further briefings throughout the week on those aspects of the trip as soon as we can, so stay tuned. Also on the subject of foreign visits, I'd like to announce that the president has invited the Crown Prince of the United Arab Emirates to visit the White House on May 15th, and the Crown Prince has accepted. We look forward to welcoming the Crown Prince and see the visit as an opportunity to deepen cooperation with a key partner in the Middle East. Moving on to domestic matters, the Vice President spent his morning today on Capitol Hill. He met privately with Majority Leader McConnell and also had individual meetings with other senators. The discussions focused primarily on the path forward for the American Health Care Act in the Senate and how the administration can work with Congress to craft a tax reform bill that follows the president's priorities: simplification, providing tax relief to the American families and individuals, and stimulating the economy. The Vice President also attended the weekly Senate Republican Policy Lunch. Later this afternoon, the Vice President will be joined by Second Lady Karen Pence, General McMaster, and Ivanka Trump to welcome more than 150 military families of all branches of service for a reception at the White House. The event recognizes National Military Appreciation Month and National Military Spouse Appreciation Day, which takes place this Friday. The President's cabinet is busy inside and out of the Beltway, speaking on the administration's agenda with local officials and key stakeholders. Secretary of Health and Human Services Dr. Tom Price is in Michigan and West Virginia today, where he will hear from those on the front lines of the fight against the opioid epidemic. Also today, the Justice Department announced that Attorney General will be speaking on opioids on Thursday at a Drug Enforcement Administration 360 Heroin and Opioid Response Summit in Charleston, South Carolina. The DEA's 360 strategy is designed to help cities and surrounding regions deal with the heroin and prescription drug abuse epidemic and the violent crime associated with it. This day-long event, sponsored by the DEA, Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, and the University of Charleston School of Pharmacy, will bring together stakeholders and professionals working in law enforcement, prevention, education, treatment, recovery, healthcare, and emergency response. In Washington, Secretary of Commerce Ross is speaking this afternoon at the 47th Conference of the Americas, which is taking place at the State Department. The event brings together administration officials, distinguished leaders from across the region to focus on major policy issues affecting the hemisphere. Also at the State Department this morning, Secretary Tillerson participated in a signing ceremony for the United States-Georgia General Security of Information Agreement with the Prime Minister of Georgia, a major milestone in security cooperation between our two countries. The President was also pleased to see several top administration officials recently move through the Senate. Last night, Heather Wilson was confirmed to be Secretary of the Air Force, and Governor Branstad was approved by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to be ambassador to China and is moving on for a vote on the floor of the Senate. The President also looks forward to seeing Dr. Scott Gottlieb confirmed by the full Senate to serve as Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration later today. Finally, with regard to the Paris Climate Agreement, the President has been meeting with his team for quite a while on this matter, and he will not be making an announcement regarding that agreement until after he returns from the G7. With that, I'd be glad to take your questions. Caitlin.
Thank you, Sean. We got 2 questions for you today. The first one is, why did the President wait 18 days to fire Mike Flynn after the White House was informed of his conduct and warned that he was a potential target for Russian blackmail? Because you realize the timing of this makes a lot of people think that he wouldn't have been fired if the story had not come out in the media.
Well, I think, first of all, let's look at the timeline. Sally Yates came here on the 26th of January. Then she informed the counsel's office that there were materials that were relevant to the situation. It wasn't until about 7 days later that they had access to those documents. After that time, they did what you should do, frankly, is an element of due process, reviewing the situation. They informed the President right away after they were informed of her giving us a heads up, and ultimately the President made the right decision. But I guess the question, or the point that I would put back on you is, somebody came over, gave us a heads up on a situation, told us there were materials. We were provided those materials 7 days later, reviewed those materials, underwent a process of reviewing the situation, and ultimately the President made a decision and it was the right one. So I think that the process worked, frankly, when you think of the time in which we had the information to make the decision that the President made.
Well, you're saying the President stands by that decision and he made the right decision, but why does he continue to defend Mike Flynn?
Well, I don't think it's not a question of defending Mike Flynn or not. Hold on.
It's a witch hunt and he should seek immunity.
Right. I think Mike Flynn is somebody who honorably served our country in uniform for over 30 years. And I think, as he's noted, Lieutenant General Flynn was asked for his resignation because he misled the Vice President. But beyond that, I think he did have an honorable career. He served with distinction in uniform for over 30 years, and the President does not want to smear a good man.
What was his role at the White House in those 18 days? Was he still fulfilling his normal national security advisor duties?
Yeah, I'm not going to get back into it. I will say, as I mentioned, the time.
Do you think it's worrisome that he was still doing that when he was a potential target for Russian blackmail?
Can I just, one thing that I think is important to know is let's look at, again, how this came down. Someone who is not exactly a supporter of the President's agenda, who a couple days after this first conversation took place, refused to uphold a lawful order of the President's, who's not exactly someone that was excited about President Trump taking office or his agenda. She had been, hold on, Caitlin, hold on. No, Caitlin, let me answer the question. She had come here, given a heads up, told us there were materials, and at the same time, we did what we should do. Just because someone comes in and gives you a heads up about something and says, I want to share some information, it doesn't mean that you immediately jump the gun and go take an action. I think if you flip this scenario and say, what if we had just dismissed somebody because a political opponent of the President had made an utterance, you would argue that it was pretty irrational to act in that manner. We did what we were supposed to do. The President made ultimately the right decision, and I think he was proven that
How is she a political opponent of the president?
She was
She's the acting attorney general that he
appointed by the Obama administration and a strong supporter of Clinton. So that's now, I think, number 4. So, Jim.
Thank you, Sean. Are the canceled meetings a sign the president is vacillating on the Paris Accord and undecided whether to remain in the agreement or withdraw from it?
No, I think it's simply a sign that the president wants to continue to meet with his team, develop meet with not just the economic piece, but his environmental team, and come to a decision on what's the best interest of the United States using the expertise that surrounds him. Well, that's it. Mara.
John, does the president want to win the war in Afghanistan?
Yes.
What would winning mean to him?
I think reducing the threat, especially when it comes to ISIS and the Taliban.
Reducing the threat.
Well, I mean, minimizing, eliminating, but obviously, in the best case scenario, we want Major. I'm going to answer Mara's question. I think the answer is that we want to eliminate the threats that are against our national security and pose a threat to our citizens, our allies. So we need to fully eliminate any threat around the globe, frankly, not just in Afghanistan, that poses a threat to our people and our allies.
I just have a question as he considers what to do next and if he wants to commit more troops. At one point we had 100,000 troops there and we didn't eliminate the threat. Why would 15,000 do the trick if 100,000 did before?
Well, I think that's a very Washington question, meaning just because you spend more, throw more people, doesn't mean you're doing it in the most effective way. I think one of the things that he has asked his national security team to do is to actually rethink the strategy. What are we doing to achieve the goals that you were asking about? How do we actually, how do we win? How do we eliminate the threat? And I think doing that isn't just a question of throwing money or people, but looking at the mission and the strategy, and that's what the team has been doing holistically, not just in Afghanistan, but the total beyond Afghanistan. It's also the way that he's asking them to look at the threat that ISIS poses.
Will he explain this to the American people, or will be this something coming out?
We'll see. I mean, I don't want to get in front of. I don't know how he's going to do that, but we'll wait and see and go from there. John.
Thanks a lot, Sean. A question about the president's policy concerning Syria. This morning we learned from the Pentagon that the president has approved a plan to directly arm Syrian Kurds against ISIS. Has the president discussed this plan with the leader of Turkey, and what was the reaction from Turkey?
I don't know if he's addressed this to the president yet. I do know that yesterday the president authorized the Department of Defense to equip Kurdish elements of the Syrian Democratic Forces as necessary to ensure a clear victory over ISIS in Raqqa, Syria. The SDF, partnered with enabling support from U.S. and coalition forces, are the only force on the ground that successfully seize Raqqa in the near future. We're keenly aware of the security concerns of our coalition partners in Turkey. We want to reassure the people and the government of Turkey that the U.S. is committed to preventing additional security risks and protecting our NATO ally. The U.S. continues to prioritize support for Arab elements of the SDF. Raqqa and all liberated territory should return to the governance of local Syrian Arabs. The fight for Raqqa will be long and difficult, but ultimately yet another defeat for ISIS and another step towards eliminating the ISIS threat that threatens peace and security in the region and the world.
The Secretary of State is meeting today with his counterpart from Russia today, the Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov.
Mm-hmm.
Are you expecting any deliverables from that particular meeting?
I think we'll have a readout when that's done. Olivia.
Thanks, Sean. I got two for you. First, do you expect the Afghan review and the ISIS review to be done by the time the president heads to Saudi Arabia?
I don't want to. That's a question that I'm going to leave up to the national security team. I'm not going to. The president's not putting a deadline on that. We're making sure that this is obviously what we announced today is part of that. It is not entirely it, and we will have more as we go forward. I just don't want to pin down a timeline on that.
One more. In this briefing, you've talked about the president's desire to, quote, fully eliminate any threat around the globe to U.S. interests. You've talked about the United States wanting to re-engage and be a leader once again and reasserting its leadership on the world stage. Some of the president's supporters are going to hear in those comments maybe a bad omen about the president changing his mind and becoming more interventionist. Not saying he wasn't going to be interventionist because he talked about ISIS a fair amount, but what would you tell them about, is he going to embark now on nation building? Is he going to deepen American involvement in conflicts in Syria and Afghanistan and elsewhere?
No, I appreciate that. I think that his priorities remain the same, but he's going to do what he can to make sure that he protects the country and our people and threats that directly affect the United States. Brian.
Thank you. Just following up, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you will, but the day after it was announced that he was under investigation, Flynn, he met with, if I'm correct, with Pence and the Russians on a phone call. So while he's under investigation, why is he being allowed to participate as a national?
I really don't recall the schedule from that day, Brian's up. But the point is, again, I think this is, look, I answered the question a moment ago, but I think as I went through the timeline, Sally Yates came over here, gave us a heads up, provided us the opportunity, made it very clear that materials were available for the council to review. But and we followed that process. And within 11 days after that, we accepted General Flynn's resignation that the president had asked for.
But the point being, while he's under investigation,
I understand, but
what is
look, we're not going to relitigate the past on this. I think we've been very clear as to what happened and why it happened. I think the president made the right decision, and we've moved on. Like,
Sean, can you confirm that the meeting today between Ivanka Trump and Mr. Pruitt was canceled, and if so, why?
I don't know. I'd be glad to get back to you on that. I'm not sure.
And secondly, as it relates to the G7, you said the decision on the Paris Climate Agreement will be made after the G7. So does the president feel that he can extract any concessions while he's there? Does he feel like he can renegotiate it, or does he just want more time? Why until after the G7?
I think the president wants to make sure that he has an opportunity to continue to meet with his team to create the best strategy for this country going forward. Sarah Murray, welcome back. Mrs. Sarah Murray. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I just want to get back to Olivier's point. I mean, why shouldn't President Trump's supporters, if he does decide to add more troops in Afghanistan, see that as running counter to what he campaigned on for so long? The notion of America first, the notion of, the fact that we're too involved in foreign entanglements abroad. He campaigned on that, and the way he's governed, I think, from what we've seen in Syria and from what he's considering in Afghanistan, seems to send a very different message.
I just want to be clear. The one thing that there is a difference between Afghanistan proper and our effort to defeat ISIS. And that's one thing that he was also very clear on in the campaign, that and as president, that he is going to do everything he can to fight radical Islamic terrorism, to root out and destroy ISIS. In some cases, if ISIS, where he has to go into Afghanistan, they may be synonymous at that point, but they are not always the same, right? You can be in, the goal is always going to be defeat ISIS, which is something that he's been very clear on with the American people from the get-go. But that all being said, let's be clear, with the exception of the piece that we announced today, that the president authorized yesterday, no decision has been made. So let's not get ahead of what that ultimate policy will be.
One other question. Can you just give us a better sense of what the president has been doing with his time the last few days? We haven't had very detailed schedules. We haven't been seeing him publicly. He's only had, 1 or 2 meetings. So what is he actually doing all day long?
Thanks. I mean, as I said at the top, the president's going on a 8-day trip. He's going, to Saudi Arabia, Israel, Rome, the G7, NATO. This is an opportunity. Next week, as I mentioned, he's going to have the Crown Prince here. He's got a commencement speech at the Coast Guard Academy. Part of the use of this week is to be meeting with the principals and the head of the directorates of the countries that we're going to ahead of the meetings, where he's receiving extensive briefings throughout the week with his team. He's had several meetings with General McMaster over the last couple of weeks, who's one of the leaders in the effort for this trip. He's met with the chief of staff, his legislative team. He was just meeting when I walked out of the Oval Office with part of his economic team. So this is an opportunity for him to get ahead of this first really long foreign trip, to make sure that he is on a whole host of issues, whether it's ISIS, whether it's our economic issues or trade issues, to make sure that we go in there, strengthen our relationships, but also make sure that we put America's priorities first. Yeah.
President Trump tweeted yesterday that the story of possible collusion between his campaign and Russia is a hoax, and he questioned when this taxpayer-funded charade would end. Is the administration trying to set parameters on what Congress and the FBI should investigate?
No.
And so, and if that is the case, so what did the president mean by when will this charade end?
Well, I think even Director Clapper said yesterday, when asked if there was any evidence that he had seen of collusion, he said no. And I think that at some point, I said it before in this briefing room, but we have to take no for an answer. He said that the director of national intelligence asked, has there been anything that you've seen additionally that shows collusion? He answered very clearly. The answer is no. And it continues to be no. And I think that there's a point at which all of the things that the president is doing economically and in national security wise to move the country forward we need to take no for an answer and move on to the issues.
But is it the role of Congress and the FBI to say when a matter should be concluded and not the White House? And then also following up on that, Senator Lindsey Graham has said that he wants to look into President Trump's business dealings to see if there are any connections to Russia. Would the White House cooperate with that?
Yeah, so the president obviously was aware of Senator Graham's suggestion after he made it today, and he's fine with that. He has no business in Russia. He has no connections to Russia, so he welcomes that. In fact, he is already charged a leading law firm in Washington, D.C. to send a certified letter to Senator Graham to that point, that he has no connections to Russia. So that should be a really easy look. Matt.
Thanks, Sean. Two questions on two different topics. First, you said that Sally Yates was a strong supporter of Hillary Clinton. What is that based on?
I think she's made some, I think there was widely rumored to play a large role in the Justice Department if Hillary Clinton had won.
So on a different topic, I have a question about that fired usher, Angela Reed.
Mm-hmm.
It was reported that she received a generous severance package. I'm wondering, how do you give a substantial severance package to a government employee?
I don't know. I'd be glad to get back to you on that. Anita.
Yesterday we learned that Sally Yates had said that she learned of the first immigration order, the travel ban, by reading the newspaper. And I'm wondering why the acting attorney general wasn't privy to that. Was that because she was a Obama appointee, Clinton supporter? Why was the acting attorney general not notified? She had just met that same day that it was signed with Don McCain. So he could have mentioned it as well.
I don't know why she wasn't. Again, I think if we want to relitigate the first executive order at the time, we talked about all of the proper individuals that needed to be made aware of were made aware of at the time.
Is it not unusual that the
I think I also, just to be clear, again, remember, this is someone who ultimately didn't even want to enforce it. So to prove, to suggest that somehow...
She wanted to enforce it until she knew
I understand that, but I think ultimately we were proven right about who needed to be in the loop on that, because she ultimately chose to disregard the president's lawful order.
It was on purpose, though.
No, I didn't say that. Please don't. I did not say that. What I'm saying is that we discussed at the time of the executive order being signed back in January the process by which that was followed. The appropriate people then were in the loop on that. Sarah.
Yesterday in her testimony, Sally Yates said that she arranged for White House counsel to view the evidence against General Flynn at the DOJ, but she wasn't around to see if that happened. You said that took place 7 days after her initial meeting. Was the evidence against Flynn relayed to the president at that time, or did the president learn about the allegations against Flynn through the media 18 days later?
Following the meeting, the White House counsel immediately informed the president and senior White House personnel when she first came here. Late on Friday, the 27th, Yates and the White House counsel met again to discuss certain issues that she had left unclear at the time. And then the president, as you know, fired her on the 30th of January after she refused to enforce the president's legal executive order, contrary to the advice of career DOJ officials at the time, who had told her that this was legal. She overrode them, didn't do this. The White House didn't get access to that underlying evidence described by Ms. Yates until Thursday, February 2nd, which is a week after Ms. Yates first met with the White House counsel. And then that's when I think the full sort of review began, once they had access to that information.
Was the president informed at that time?
I know he was informed at the front end of what she had told him, and the council had informed them that they were going to then seek the information that she said was available to them. Hallie.
Two different topics for you. I want to follow up on what a couple of folks have already mentioned here. You've described in this briefing what Sally Yates did as a heads up with Don McGahn. She has testified she came to the White House twice in person to meet with Don McGahn on the 26th and the 27th to do more, she says, than simply offer to provide materials. She says she encouraged the White House to act and expressed real concern about Mike Flynn being compromised by the Russians. On the 28th, Saturday, Mike Flynn sat in on that Oval Office phone call with President Putin. Was that the right call?
Again, I think what you have is somebody who was an Obama appointee coming in and saying, I get it, but at that moment, sure, you have someone who you have to wonder why they're telling you something, to the point where they had to come back a second time because what they were saying was unclear.
So let me follow on that, because before I get to the second topic, you said it was widely rumored that she wanted to be a part of the Clinton White House potentially. And so that makes you negate her coming to
No, I'm not. I guess my point is that somebody who clearly showed by the fact that career DOJ attorneys told her that the president's lawful order, that she should sign the president's lawful order, and then chose not to do it, was clear. I get it, but that vindicates the president's point that this was not somebody who was looking out. I think my point is that we were correct in the assumptions that we made at the time. Trey.
My second topic for you, though, is just on healthcare.
Yeah.
Is the White House asking Senate leadership to put more women on the working group?
I'm not aware of that. Trey.
Would the White House like to see that?
I think the more voices that we can put on a panel to help get this done, the better. So to the extent I'm not going to tell Leader McConnell, or the White House is not going to tell him how to conduct a panel. But at the same time, I think that any voices that can be constructive in getting a more patient-centric healthcare system put together, would be welcome. But that's not our call to make. Trey.
Thanks, Sean. There's been a number of conversations in Washington this week about the relationship between H.R. McMaster and the president. How does President Trump characterize his relationship with his national security advisor?
Excellent.
Another follow-up question
Yeah.
very quickly on Flynn. You've spoken from the podium before about the president asking Michael Flynn to resign as a result of him misleading the vice president. We've learned a lot about Michael Flynn this week and potential investigations, and we know actual investigations into his actions before coming here to the White House. Was this at all considered in the president's decision to ask him to resign?
I think you can only accept someone's resignation once. So he asked for it, he got it, and so to go back and relitigate isn't really something that makes a ton of sense. He got it, he asked for it, he got it the first time. I don't think you go back and continue to say, would I have asked for it here, here, and here? He did what he did the first time, he was right, and he got it. Amen.
Thanks, Sean. Can you just be clear on the 18 days? Did the White House put any security restrictions on Mike Flynn at all during that period of time? Was he limited in terms of his access to classified information, national secrets, or decision-making in any way?
I'm not aware of any. The decision that we made was the right one. The president made a decision. He stands by it. Jenna.
So I just want to go over this timeline again. You have Yates coming to the White House on January 26th and the 27th. You then have McGahn going to the DOJ on February 2nd to see those documents. But it's not until February 13th that Flynn actually resigns. Well, tell us what happened between, you got this warning, you then saw documents that backed up that warning, and then you have 11 days that pass. What was happening in those 11 days?
I think if you go back in time and look at what we talked about at the time, there were several conversations that occurred with General Flynn between the chief of staff, the general counsel, the vice president, that all occurred then. When you think about the scope of time that actually occurred, those 11 days, to make sure that we did the right thing is important. And we ultimately did, and that's what's important when you think of this. And when you look at this compared to other instances, the idea that in 11 days a review was conducted, the president acted decisively, I think that's actually shows that the system worked properly. John.
Are you guys disputing at all how Yates describes those conversations on the 26th and 27th? She's saying that she came here with great urgency, that she made clear that he had been compromised, that she had evidence that he had been compromised, that this was something that she felt like the White House was going to take action on?
Well, look, I'm not going to, I don't think that there's 100% agreement about how she describes everything. But I think generally, as far as the timeline goes, we're fine with it. But I'm not going to nitpick the fact that her, what her tone was like. I would suggest that the reason that she was asked to come back the second day was because it clearly wasn't that clear on the first day. I think logic dictates you don't ask someone to come back and explain themselves a second time if they've done an effective job the first time. But again, I'm not going to get into needling every little point about what happened. John.
Thank you, Sean. I have 2 questions on
of course.
diverse areas. First, a citizens group known as United Against a Nuclear Iran released a list of 16 American companies a few days ago, among them Volvo, Honeywell, and Schlumberger, all of which are cutting back on jobs employing Americans, but all of which expressed a desire to do business in Iran under the terms of the deal that was made with Tehran. My question is this: what is the administration's response to businesses who say they want to do business in Iran under a deal the president described as the worst ever?
I think that speaks for itself. I mean, the president's very clear on what he thinks of the Iran deal, and companies need to abide by the law.
All right. My other question is this: 2 weeks ago, Monday, when the president met with some of us, he said, and it was on the record, he would have an answer on the administration's policy toward the International Monetary Fund in a few days. It's been 2 weeks. Can we expect any time an announcement on what the administration will do regarding the IMF?
I would be glad to follow up on that one and get back to you. Dave.
Sean, the governor of Texas on Sunday signed a law that essentially outlaws sanctuary cities in the state of Texas. Do you view this as a positive step, and would you encourage other states to do the same?
Obviously it's a positive step. I think it shows that, as we've discussed here, both from an economic and a security standpoint, that makes sense for the citizens of our country. Each governor, each mayor is going to have to make their own decisions, but I think the president's position is very clear when it comes to sanctuary cities and how we're going to try to address them going forward. Because it's not just an economic issue, it's not just a jobs issue, but it's a security issue for our country. And so I think ultimately every elected official from the local level all the way up to president needs to feel comfortable with the laws that they're passing to make sure that they're protecting the people. I mean, ultimately that's what every government first and foremost responsibility is to its people.
What does this mean for the administration's position that these sanctuary cities should not be existing nationally? Will you still take action that denies funding to cities nationwide?
Well, again, I think it's a positive sign. I hope more follow the governor's lead. But we're going to do exactly what the president said and follow through on the executive orders he's made. Major.
So, Sean, you mentioned Director Clapper's testimony yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Said no evidence of collusion. But then he was also asked if he was aware of the FBI counterintelligence investigation. He said he was not. And therefore, he left the impression before the panel he could not give a definitive answer about the question of collusion. Do you accept that as a valid representation of his knowledge and the fact that this remains an open question?
Sure. I mean, in the sense that I'm not going to question, but I think the interesting thing is on all the other issues that he testifies about, everybody takes it as whole cloth, that if he says anything, he must. He was the DNI. So when you guys want him to speak for the entire 17 agencies, you sort of assume that that's what he's doing. In this case, when he's been asked similar questions before and said, well, I can't speak to this case. Generally speaking, I've seen nothing. The presumption is therefore he's got to be saying it. In this case, he's saying, I have not and continue to do not see anything that shows an effort of collusion. As the DNI, I would ask you the same question, which is at some point, given all that he was seeing and all that he was given access to, when at some point are you guys going to accept this idea that there was no collusion?
I'm asking you if you accept what he testified.
Sure.
That they have equal weight. That yes, at the time he said, and the agency said they found no evidence, that is a representative fact that you take as valid. And it's also a representative fact that you take as valid. He was not aware of an FBI counterintelligence investigation, and therefore at this time cannot say conclusively there was no collusion. You give them equal weight, correct?
Sure.
Okay, fine. On Afghanistan, because I think it's important what the president's thinking about. You've been implying that ISIS is a part of the Afghanistan equation. And what I want to ask you about is, as the president looks in Afghanistan, as a team presents him options, are those options primarily about whatever ISIS component is in Afghanistan, or the larger, more malignant issue in Afghanistan, which has always been the Taliban?
Right. So there's, as you know, multiple missions going on to confront those multiple things. The U.S. currently has about 8,400 forces in Afghanistan. doing a counterterrorism operation, which is Operation Freedom Sentinel, and then the NATO mission, which is to train, advise, and assist under Operation Resolute Support. The main objective of us being in Afghanistan, from being used as a safe haven for terrorists to attack the United States and our allies, that is the main objective. We remain very focused on the defeat of Al-Qaeda, its associates, as well as the defeat of ISIS-K, which is the ISIS affiliate there in Afghanistan. But that is simply put what the mission is going forward.
And when you suggest that it's a Washington question to ask if 15,000 can do a better job than 100,000, are you suggesting that the ideas the president is being presented with are so original and
No.
out of the box that 15,000 troops can achieve what 100,000 deployed very shortly after 9/11 could not achieve?
No, I'm just suggesting that I think fully refining the mission, what we're seeking to achieve, and that goes back to what Mara was saying. What is the exact objective? How far away are we doing it? What's the time level that we have to have? Can we grow the Afghan force? Is there there are several things that go into a strategy. And I think the idea of just saying, can we throw X number at it, is not the way that the president's looking at these options. He's trying to figure out, walk back from a goal of of eliminating this threat, and then tell me how we get there, as opposed to tell me how many troops we need and then what you're going to do with them. I think that there has been in the past, some instances of just figuring, okay, if we add more troops, that'll help solve the problem. The president's asking to re-look at the entire strategy, and then figure out what the footprint is in a variety of ways to get there. That is a different look at what the strategy is versus what it had been.
And one last thing. You suggested that when Sally Yates refused to enforce the executive order, that vindicated the assumption you had that she might not have been a purely well-motivated government servant bringing over this evidence about Michael Flynn. On the other side of that, after Don McGahn looked at the evidence on February 2nd, was in fact Sally Yates' warning vindicated?
I don't know. I don't know what Don saw, so I'm not privy to that.
You told us that led to his firing, so it had to have some legitimacy, right?
No, what led to his firing was that he misled the vice president.
But wasn't that information about
Again,
those
I cannot get into, and I don't know, frankly, what was in those
Should
materials.
the country not assume that she was vindicated by that review of the evidence?
No, I don't think they should assume anything. I think facts should guide it, and the bottom line is the president fired him for misleading the vice president, and he was. I just said to you, Major, multiple times, and I said at the time. So to go back at the time that it happened, and right now, we continue to say that the vice president was misled by General Flynn, and the president asked for his resignation. Full stop. John.
Sean, if I could come back to Paris.
You
it's my
can.
understanding that
Let's all go.
and one other one after that. It's my understanding that the president's initial inclination was to pull out of the Paris Agreement. It suggested as much on the campaign trail. But the situation has become a little bit more complicated. But the knock against the Paris Agreement is that it would have a detrimental effect on the U.S. economy if fully implemented. Does the president believe that there is a way to stay in the Paris Agreement, maybe renegotiate the standards? Because he's under a tremendous amount of pressure from many of his own advisors, other countries, to stay in this agreement to some degree. Does he think he can make changes and still stay in it?
I think the reason that he's seeking the advice of his team is to get options, and then he'll pursue the best one. But I'm not going to tell you which one that he's going to do. That's why he's continuing to meet with the team and to get advice. That's it, plain and simple. Steve.
Well, hang on, I got one other thing. Also, what in the omnibus spending bill that the president signed was a provision to extend the EB-5 visa program. And it's been pointed out that the company that Jared Kushner was recently in charge of has been aggressively reaching out to people in China to say, invest in our property in Jersey City. Remember the EB-5 program, that people that invest a certain amount of money in this country get the sort of golden visa program. Does the president see any potential conflict of interest there?
I think Jared has no affiliation with that company anymore. He recused himself from it, sold his interest in it. So that's a question more for the company itself to ask.
So the president doesn't see any potential conflicts here?
No, I mean, the Jared did everything that was required to make sure that he recused himself and took all the steps necessary. Steve.
Just before the briefing, you put out a statement, Sean, that congratulates...
Thank you for bringing that up.
Right.
Yes.
Moon, the liberal who ran in South Korea, he had actively campaigned suggesting that the president's idea that South Korea pay its fair share of the THAAD missile system is a bad idea. He wants warmer relations with the North. Do you hope to convince him to change his mind?
I think the president looks forward to meeting with him and talking about our shared interests. So I'll wait for that conversation, and I'm sure we'll have a readout for you.
Second question.
Okay.
You did say that the president has an excellent relationship with his national security advisor, but there's been
He
a
does.
widely circulating column written by Eli Lake that
Right.
quotes the president, two sources, saying that his national security advisor is the general undermining my policy. Did the president say that?
No, I don't believe he has. I haven't seen him. I was with, I mean, I think when you look at the president's schedule this week, as I just noted to Sarah a little while ago, there's probably no one aside from family members that are spending more time with the president this week. The General McMaster, he values his counsel. He continues to be extremely pleased with his pick and his performance as National Security Advisor, and he has the utmost confidence in him. Tula.
Thank you, Sean. Just a couple more questions on General Flynn. You keep saying that the White House was given a heads up by Sally Yates about what General Flynn had said to the Russians. She described it differently, saying that she told the White House that General Flynn had been compromised by the Russians and was subject to blackmail by the Russians. Is that the position of the White House now, after seeing all the same evidence that Sally Yates saw, that General Flynn was compromised and potentially blackmailed?
I think, look, we've commented on this. We made a decision based on actions that he took. The president asked for and accepted his resignation. We're not looking to relitigate this.
Don't the American people deserve to know whether or not they're...
They need to know that the president took decisive action in this country's best interest. And back to Steve's question, made an excellent choice for National Security Advisor.
By a foreign advocate.
I don't know that you'll know. I mean, that's up for.
To that conclusion.
She didn't. I think that's. I don't know that that's for her to come to that conclusion without any investigatory method seems a little premature, don't you? I mean, to say that. Hold on, no. But what I'm saying is.
Did the White House investigate whether or not they're not?
All I'm going to, as I've said multiple times, we looked into the situation. The president made a decision, and it was the right decision. Jonathan.
Sean, a follow-up on that, but first I wanted to ask you about FBI Director James Comey's testimony before the Senate, which now apparently it looks like the FBI Director gave inaccurate testimony to the Senate. Is the White House concerned that he greatly exaggerated or misstated what kind of contact Huma Abedin had in terms of her emails and sending them to Anthony Weiner?
I have not asked the president or the staff about that, but I mean, I think there's the one issue is I don't think there's any question by any account that that there was classified information inappropriately shared on an unclassified system to an uncleared person. I mean, that's to me, I think what continues to be the takeaway.
But is the White House concerned that the FBI Director apparently gave inaccurate testimony?
I don't at this point. I have not asked, and I'm not fully aware of this. I mean, I'm aware of the testimony that occurred and the inquiries, but I've yet to follow up on that, and I'd be glad to follow up.
Does the president still have confidence, full confidence in FBI Director James Comey?
I have no reason to believe. I haven't asked him, so I don't. I have not asked the president since the last time we spoke about this.
And the last time you spoke about it, you said he did have confidence, but you're not sure to say that again now?
Well, I don't, in light of what you're telling me, I don't want to start speaking on behalf of the president without speaking to him first.
And then one follow-up on Flynn. The president, of course, had said that Flynn should ask for immunity before agreeing to testify. Does he still believe that?
I think General Flynn should seek the advice of counsel and take their advice with respect to his investigation and the inquiries into his background. But that's a decision for him and his counsel. Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.
All right, guys, looks like that will do it for Sean Spicer today. What did you guys think of the White House press briefing? Did you think Spicer was straightforward, or was he a little shaky on some of his answers about former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned here to our Facebook timeline for more live and breaking events. And jump on over to our YouTube channel as well, Fox 5 DC on YouTube, to check out live news and breaking events daily with myself, Molly, in the digital newsroom. Thanks for watching, guys.
You by any chance know Gina Love? Yeah. Okay. You know that's why you're supposed to. Yeah.
All right, guys, for those of you watching on YouTube, what's up, guys? Thanks for all your comments during the White House press briefing. Pretty interesting stuff. We love bringing that to you, kind of like a behind the scenes, because not many cameras or people have access to the camera that's in there. So thanks for all your comments throughout. I love hearing what you have to say about everything and some of the questions and answers that Sean Spicer faced today. Thanks to some of my viewers today for keeping the conversation going. Shout out to Matt, who's watching, and Wendell and Texas. Thanks for chatting about this. Let us know more about what you think. We are probably going to roll out the show shortly, but I just want to check back in with you guys. And thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you'd like to see in general, what you like covered. We'd like to bring you all the live news, whether it be political, local, more local government stuff, artistic stuff, the arts, as well as other things that are just happening in our community, all across the community and the nation and the world here on Fox 5 Live. So let us know what you think. We want to hear your feedback and your comments. And I think that's going to do it for us. We're going to roll out the show today. But once again, I am Molly Nevola here on YouTube. We do this every day in the middle of the day. So during your lunch hour, during, any time in the morning, late morning into the afternoon, if you want to flip us on, tune into our YouTube channel right here. Click subscribe, press that button right now, and you can see when we pop up with these live events and live video, which should be standardly that time in the middle of your day. So you can check back in with us. So with that, I think that is going to do it, guys. We are going to roll out the show. Thank you so much for watching from Florida, from Texas, right here in DC, Maryland. We love you guys as viewers. So keep on watching us every day. We'll be back tomorrow, Wednesday, with more of this on May 10th. That's going to do it for me, guys. I'm going to leave you with a gorgeous shot on this spring day of the Capitol. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.